Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 23rd regular meeting of Council. I'd like to first recognize that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nation. Our clerk tonight will be Ms. Sheila Gurry. We also have Councillor Manley attending electronically. Welcome. Tonight's regular meeting of Council is being held in accordance with the Community Charter and Council Procedure Bylaw 2018, number 7272. So if during the meeting any member of the gallery has a question regarding an agenda item, please write down your name and the agenda item on the question period sign-up sheet, which is on the table by the double doors to my left. And please note that the Council Procedure Bylaw states that questions will only be taken on staff reports, consent items, or other business items. We have a fairly large crowd tonight, so I'm just going to read this out. Before we start the meeting, I would like to take a few moments to remind those who are attending meetings in person about the rules of decorum for all council and committee meetings. A meeting of council is intended to be a place where democracy can freely take place in a respectful and safe manner. The council chambers is a workplace, and there are considerations that staff and council must make to ensure that a safe work environment exists in accordance with WorkSafe BC regulations. To support this, and in accordance with Council's procedure bylaw, disrespectful conduct will not be tolerated, so we ask that there be no cheering or jeering or other disruptions from the gallery. Furthermore, the use of electronic devices for recording or photographing is prohibited unless otherwise authorized through the media accreditation policy or by the chair. This will ensure that anyone speaking, whether it be a delegation, member of council, or staff, is not interrupted and can make their point freely without distraction, fear of ridicule, or intimidation. That said, there may be moments during certain presentations or recognitions where clapping or expressions of appreciation are welcomed, and I'll certainly indicate when those moments are appropriate. In instances where a speaker is being inappropriate or has exceeded their time limit, their microphone will be cut off. Similarly, if there are disruptions by any person in the gallery, they will be asked to stop, and if they do not comply, they may be asked to leave as permitted under Section 133 of the Community Charter. If necessary, Council may recess in order to reset the environment of the Council chambers. It is Council's belief that if everyone is respectful of these basic considerations, this meeting and future meetings will be more effective in furthering the business of the City of Nanaimo. The first item on the agenda is the introduction of late items, Ms. Gurry, and we have several tonight.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, and good evening, Council. For late items this evening, we have Agenda Item 8C, BC Housing Heart and Hearth update. We're replacing the PowerPoint presentation that was provided on the original agenda, and we're adding a delegation from Karen Kowicka, Newcastle Community Association. We're adding Agenda Item 15A, correspondence dated March 13th, 2026, from Stuart McLean, Chair of the Regional District of Nanaimo, regarding the RDN board voting. And we're adding item 15B, Nanaimo Hornets Rugby Football Club, request for letter of support, ReBC Gaming Program application. And that's it, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Motion for adoption of the agenda is amended. Moved Councillor Perino, seconded Councillor Brown. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Motion for adoption of the minutes is circulated. Moved Councillor Hemmons, seconded Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Mayor's report. I just have a couple of items tonight. Just a little reminder that the Country Club Norwell Drive utility and street improvements to replace underground sewer and water pipes along Norwell Drive, together with the Regional District of Nanaimo, the city plans to leverage underground trenching work in the Country Club area to improve the street's safety, ease of access, and to upgrade the transit exchange. The city is seeking public feedback until April 17th, 2026 to refine earlier engagement. What we heard in round one concluded back in August. The city received input regarding the issues and opportunities to create a safer transit exchange with better access to Country Club Centre. Round two launched on March 4th to gather feedback on the concept plan for the transit exchange and improvements built over the new underground utilities. Community members can get involved and share their feedback by visiting nanaimo.ca/go-to/country club to review the concept plan, completing an online comment form that is open until April 17th, 2026. So there are also paper copies available at the Van Crown Regional Library, the Wellington Branch, and in Country Club Centre. So please feel free to offer your input on this important project. Water main flushing will take place in the north end from Entwistle Drive to Dickinson Road from March 10th until mid-April. If you spot discolored water, it is temporary, it's not a health hazard, and you can flush it out by running the cold water tap until the water runs clear. Our regular water main flushing program is an important component of a comprehensive water management program. The City of Nanaimo's water main flushing program flushes over 95 kilometers of water supply mains and over 539 kilometers of distribution water mains. The city's Public Works Department annually flushes the potable water at a high velocity through the water mains to ensure that all piping is refreshed, minor sediment within the pipe is removed. So, don't panic when it happens. We are, as a city, announcing our call for artists for Luminous Paths 2027. Artists are invited to submit proposals for light-based installations for Nanaimo's biannual Winter Arts Festival. Artists and creative teams are invited to submit proposals for temporary light-based public art installations that will transform Maffeo Sutton Park, Swayalana, into an immersive illuminated landscape during the city's biannual Winter Festival. First launched in 2025, Luminous Paths is a celebration of light, art, and community. Artists are encouraged to create works that respond thoughtfully to place and environment while inviting audiences to explore the park in new ways. Temporary public art projects will be selected in the summer of 2026. Installations presented during the festival from February 15th this year to March 12th, 2027. The deadline for submissions is June 14th. Full details, eligibility. Think I'd been drinking at dinner, wish I had maybe. Eligibility requirements and the online submission form can be found on the city's website. And finally, because of the odd way the calendar has fallen this year, this is the first opportunity to comment about March 8th at a council meeting. I want to take the moment to acknowledge that International Women's Day has been celebrating 115 years, 1911 to 2026, as have many of the issues still impacting women's advancement. Since 1911, International Women's Day belongs to all who care about gender equality, and in celebrating as well as honoring women's achievements for social, economic, cultural, and political achievements. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that having grown up where I did and when I did, both of my grandmothers had no opportunity to vote till they were well into their 30s. Just literally the right to vote. And sometimes we become a bit blasé about that, and I'll say that because it's election year, and if statistics hold, only 25% of the eligible voters in this city are going to bother to go to the polls to elect their civic government. I don't take it personally that no one cares to vote, or not enough people, but having said that, just remember the struggle it took to get women the vote, let alone what it represents, and consider also for a moment the status of women in various countries around the world who are struggling just to get the right to go to school, let alone the right to vote and participate fully in society, as is their natural right. So, on behalf of Council, we acknowledge and support the progress that's been made and highlighting the efforts to make it better, but we have a ways to go yet, so let us not give up and continue to celebrate International Women's Day accordingly. All right, in terms of rising and reporting, Ms. Gurry, be some changes further, but I wish to report to the member-at-large appointment to the Board of Variance on March the 2nd at an in-camera council meeting. Council appointed Mikkel Romo to the Board of Variance for a 3-year term commencing March the 2nd, 2026 and ending March the 2nd, 2029. We are now on to 3 important presentations, which will conclude with a delegation from the Newcastle Community Association. And I'm going to ask Lisa Bhopal Singh, our Deputy CAO, to provide a bit of an introduction. The 3 presentations are in order: United for Housing, Nanaimo Point in Time Count Debrief, the BC Trilateral Alignment Project, and the BC Housing Heart and Hearth Update. Ms. Bhopal Singh, please.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. So today you're going to get 3 presentations that are all interrelated and closely connected that speak to Council's priorities under the Health and Housing Action Plan, the City Plan under our Healthy Nanaimo goal, and Council's strategic framework. And these all particularly relate to social, health, wellness, and public safety challenges in the city. This includes information that Council has requested going back to last year from the province regarding the coordination of provincial homelessness response and prevention and housing initiatives. Together, these presentations provide data and insights into approaches for responding to housing and homelessness challenges. They touch on the numbers of people currently homeless in our community through the point-in-time count, and they speak to how we are working together locally, federally, and provincially to align efforts, with the responses being aligning our urgent and complex housing needs. So the information today is intended to support decision-making and coordinated access across different jurisdictions and organizations. And it's our hope that following your direction on November 28th, asking staff to look at how we realign some of our efforts in terms of systems planning and the Health and Housing Action Plan, and you've given us direction to bring some resources inside. Some of these efforts that you see today did not exist when we embarked on doing the Health and Housing Action Plan and looking at systems planning, and that's a really important piece. And we hope that the information shared today lines you up to consider a GPC on this topic, with staff coming back to you with where we're at with the Health and Housing Action Plan more broadly, and staff's response to your direction and resources investment following the closure of the SPO. So without further ado, we have Naomi Woodland, who's the Director of Housing Initiatives with the Community Impact and Investment, and John Rabanek, who's the Project Lead for the 2025 Nanaimo Point and Count with United Way. And before we hand over to them, I think I'll just introduce each of the different presenters, and then they can flow from there. Following this presentation will be the BC Trilateral Alignment Project, which will be Jennifer Fox, who's the Regional Director of Vancouver Island Region for BC Housing, Naomi Brunemeyer, the Director of Housing Initiatives with the Community Impact and Investment with United Way BC. And then lastly, we have, it's Naomi Woodland for the second one. Sorry, Naomi?
There's three of us in the house tonight.
Right, okay. And then we have BC Housing's Heart and Hearth update with, again, Jennifer Fox and Naomi Brunemeyer, who's the Director of Regional Housing Development, and Alison Dunny, the Executive Director of Homelessness Programs for BC Housing. So we are pleased to be able to have all these parties align to have a themed presentation for you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thanks for having us today. I'm joined online by John Rabanek, who's the project lead for the point-in-time count in Nanaimo. So I'm going to hand it over to him pretty much straight away. I'm just going to be doing the slides here. But over to you, John.
Great. Thanks so much, Naomi. Is everybody okay? Can you hear my audio? That's okay. Awesome. So good evening, everybody. My name is John Rabanek. I'm Coast Salish from the Nanaimo First Nation on my mother's side and English and Irish on my father's side. I was here last year supporting the point-in-time count work with the other presentation, and super glad and happy to be a part of this this year as well. Tonight, we'll just walk through how the 2025 count was built, what it tells us, and sort of set the stage for the count in this upcoming year. Naimo, if you want to go to the next slide. So this year's total count was built from three pieces. First, survey confirmed homelessness. We recorded 529 screening interactions after checking about over 180 locations, resulting in 402 people confirmed, as in scope, based on where they stayed on the count night. Secondly, the observed unsheltered homelessness added 121 individuals who are identified through visible signs such as encampments, vehicles, or outdoor sleeping setups, but were not directly surveyed. And finally, new this year was a youth key informant snapshot. This identified 54 young people experiencing homelessness through information shared by Nanaimo schools, youth serving agencies, MCFD, and other working group connections. And just a minor note on the youth piece, last year, Mayor Krog, if you recall, you asked me specifically about youth homelessness in the 2024 pit count and what needs to be done specifically to address it directly. I think this year we've done our best to capture that information, and our hope going forward is to better understand that and bring attention to this part of the picture. Next slide, Naomi. And so when we bring these three pieces together, the total is pretty straightforward, with 402 survey confirmed plus 121 observed unsheltered, gives us a core enumeration of 523. and as we add the 54 youth key informant cases, and the total comes to 577. And for context, we followed the standard point-in-time count methodology used across participating communities in Canada, where people were included or excluded based on screening questions and where they stayed on count night. Next slide there, Naomi. I'm gonna pause on this slide a little more, but and hopefully unpack some of these numbers, because I think it's key to sort of that final number. So the methodology here, we began with 529 screening interactions, and of those, 490 people consented to participate, with 39 not consenting. After removing duplicate risk responses, that left us with 485, and from there, 402 people were confirmed in scope for the core count based on overnight location, and then adding the 121 observed unsheltered individuals, bringing the core enumeration to 523, and then with the 54 youth enhancement, the final total reaching 577. Of big note here is that that 83 screened out. This is an unusually high number, and an area of confusion at the screening stage. In terms of process, people may have responded that they do have access to permanent housing, but were actually describing temporary or unstable or precarious living situations. However, under the PIT methodology, unfortunately, once somebody is screened as saying they do have access to permanent housing, they're immediately withdrawn from the count. And so we know, as anecdotally through some of our volunteers and some of the folks who were involved, there were people posted outside of some of the temporary shelters or some of these spaces who may have answered that they do have access to permanent housing, and thus removed them from the count, unfortunately. Just a minor misunderstanding there, but as it goes, we're being pretty rigid with our process here. In addition, there were also 39 folks who were removed because technically they actually didn't consent to giving us their information. There was a question at the beginning of the survey to ask whether an individual consents to providing information or not. This was missed by some of our volunteers, and again, by following the methodology, we couldn't include those people in the count, even though they did wind up answering the questions. Putting those together, we have over 100, close to 120 responses that were disqualified immediately, an abnormally high number considering our response rate. So just to keep that into the context. The next slide there, Naomi. As with any PIT count, the number should be understood as a conservative minimum, not as a complete count of everyone experiencing homelessness on the night. This was the first year that the streamlined annual survey was used in this way, and screening wasn't applied consistently across all volunteer teams. Again, with some folks noting that they were housed, however, not actually being housed. So I think, yeah, with stronger training and clearer screening guidance being the priorities for our next year's count, I think we'd have a better, wholesome picture. The next slide, Naomi. And so to summarize, 577 people experiencing homelessness on December 3rd, 2025, when we did conduct the PIT count. Yeah, here's a breakdown here. And of course, behind every one of these numbers is a person. Yeah, that's what this slide is summarizing, the in scope and scale of homelessness in Nanaimo on one night in December. The next slide, Naomi. So the count doesn't confirm a true, necessarily confirm or conclude a true reduction in homelessness. While youth were included for the first time, there's no single reason for a lower number, and the decrease wouldn't necessarily be read as proof that any one single investment or one single intervention caused it. The number is lower than last year, but we know anecdotally and of course through the work that we do that the need is not necessarily lower. even just looking at 577, that's still 577 people in one night in December without stable housing. The next slide, Naomi. So how the total was broken down, the overnight location categories for the counted population, the largest category being the homeless shelter at 165 people, or about 30%. After that, unsheltered public space accounted for 100, encampments for 63, vehicles for 51, and transitional shelter or housing for 41. Two things stand out. Unsheltered homelessness is not necessarily one thing, and vehicle habit, folks living in vehicles being a meaningful part of the local picture here. The next slide. And a further breakdown of the distribution. This is all in the final report, which I think each of you would have access to. But essentially the largest category being homeless shelter with 165, and after that 100 people identified in unsheltered public spaces, 63 in encampments, and of course 51 in vehicles, and 41 in transitional shelter or housing. The next slide, Naomi. Yep. So to zoom in on the youth piece, the youth snapshot identified 54 young people. This was through close engagement with some key youth leaders and schools and folks across Nanaimo, with good working knowledge of where some youth were staying and were living precariously. Of course, there's a better methodology to do this, but this was the first year that gave us a perfect, an important glimpse into the youth snapshot. Next slide, Naomi. So again, 577 being a conservative minimum. The youth homelessness is very real, and most of it is in the hidden form of standard street-based counting. We know from last year's full-length survey that Indigenous overrepresentation remains a structural issue that requires culturally grounded Indigenous-led responses. This will be helping support our training for next year for outreach. Next slide. And for the process itself, looking at more robust training for our volunteers and our folks reaching out to the population, improving screening definition consistency, expanding administrative data collection from shelter and facility partners, and developing a clear method, honest public launch message. A number without context would be misread. Next slide. Yeah, I think that's it. Great. Happy to answer any questions. Of course, we have the report, and I think this deck is also included with what people have. So, thanks.
Thank you very much. Ms. Woodland, do you have anything to say before we go to questions?
Just to say the partnership and the collaboration amongst the community partners through Snuneymuxw First Nation, city staff, and all the outreach teams was phenomenal. So just a huge thank you to all of those people that put time and effort into this work.
Thank you. In order, Councillors Armstrong, then Himmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. You touched on youth, but did you look at what's happening with the seniors? Because we're getting lots of reports of seniors being homeless, and I'd like to know if anybody could track that, because especially when we're supposed to have programs for seniors, to see if they're even working.
Specifically, no, we didn't do a closer look into seniors, but they would be, I guess, they would be included in the adult population who we engaged with. So it's something to take back for sure, but to look specifically for seniors who are homeless, no, we didn't.
Okay, and just I wanted to ask you a question about, we talked about that there's been appears to have been a drop in homelessness this past year, and we don't know why, but would it be fair to say that there has been another, I think there's about almost 75 units have come on by BC Housing, and unfortunately also the toxic drug crisis, which led to deaths of many homeless?
Sorry, so what was the question there?
The question is, we've seen a huge increase from BC Housing, where more BC Housing supportive units came on board. Would that account for some of the drop in the numbers?
I mean, certainly there's room there for investigation. I think The takeaway here was the abnormally high number of folks that were discounted or not included in the count because of the methodology, but certainly the efforts being done by the city would play into any impact on these numbers for sure.
Thank you.
And if I may add, Councillor Armstrong, to your point on seniors, so in every other year we do the longer survey, but we can also make sure that's a point that's identified in terms of seniors. And then just to echo John's point, if we had everyone who had filled out a survey had consented to being included, we would have a far higher number than what we actually saw.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate the clarification.
Thank you. In order, Councillor Hemmons, Manley, and then Gesselbrock.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for the presentation and your work. I'm really glad to hear that all of the partnerships have been helpful. Following on Councillor Armstrong's question about youth, I understood from your presentation that we didn't connect directly with any youth. We connected with youth serving organizations to tell us. So do we think that the 54 number is representative?
Certainly, I would. It was through close engagement with the schools and with folks working with youth within the city. I would certainly stand by that number all day and tomorrow. We had some really good conversations and some good understanding amongst the people we were engaging with to understand what the question was and what we were looking for, and ensure not duplication across different areas. So, yeah, it's a starting point for sure.
Yeah, thank you. That's helpful, and I appreciate the acknowledgement of a starting point. I think with any demographic we're trying to capture, just like people living in their cars, it's a really hard task to go out and actually get these numbers day by day. So really appreciate seeing youth added. My next question is, I believe this was the first year that we included a brain injury question, and did we collect any interesting data from that? I believe, oh, sorry.
This was a short form survey this year. That wasn't a question on the survey this year.
Okay, thank you.
Those questions will be asked again in the fall. The way the federal counts work is that 1 year you do the full survey, which gives you all the demographic and health data. This is what's known as an enumeration count, which is like a check-in count to make sure that those numbers in the odd years are kind of roughly the same.
I see. Thank you, Naomi. And did we, on the last long form, did the question about brain injury exist on that one?
Yes.
That was, okay.
I think that one's been added in the last few years around the health issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very important question. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Manley, please.
My main question's kind of been answered because I was also curious about demographics, for seniors, for people with disabilities, people with mental health challenges, people with addiction challenges. And so that's all coming on next year's survey. And I'm wondering if you can share those survey questions with us so we have a better understanding of what might be asked next year. My other question is just around youth enumeration, which I think is great. I worked with youth for a while, and a number of them were homeless during the time I was working with them on employment programs and couch surfing, but also the youth safe house. Was that included in the count with Tillicum Laleham?
So let me just work backwards with Tillicum Laleham. We were engaged with some of the folks who work there and were able to pull some numbers. Forgive me, Naomi, did we get that from HIFIS, or was that something that we reached? Yeah, no, we didn't.
No, I think that would have been through the community partners. With the youth housing program, if that's like on a longer term basis, they wouldn't necessarily be counted as temporarily housed. So there's a really clear definition around if you paid for rent the previous night or paid something towards accommodation, you're not counted as homeless or precariously housed. It's more those couch surfing instances where somebody doesn't have their name attached to a bed that they can stay in.
Okay. Yeah, I think that the Tillicum Laleham Youth Safe House is not something that people would pay rent for, but it's like temporary shelter for youth and waiting to get into other housing opportunities. Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. Appreciate the numbers and looking forward to. Are you going to share the broader report with us?
Absolutely. Yeah, you should have that by, I think if not now, then it'll be up shortly. Certainly. And to your question on the questions, certainly that's something we can share with you. We have the questions from last year, even that were in the report, and it's more or less the same with maybe some minor tweaks coming in this year. So definitely.
Both
Okay,
of the,
yeah.
sorry, Councillor Manley. The reports are both on the United Way website, and the questions are an appendices in the back of the report.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think the demographics are really important, so we know what kind of housing we should be targeting, for seniors, for youth, what kind of services we should be requesting from the province, etc. So thank you very much for the report.
Thank you. Councillor Gesselbrock, then Councillor Perino.
Thanks, Mayor, through you. I think this has been spoken to, but just to further clarify, the decrease in number should not be taken that we've turned a corner, but really is a matter of just the methodology used and some inconsistencies, and really it confirms that we're dealing with pretty much the same magnitude of problem as we were last year, correct?
I think that'd be accurate. There was a bit of a survey fatigue comes to mind from folks. There were a lot of people we engaged who said, I just answered this question, a few months ago. Why are you asking me again, type of thing. And there's some work that needs to be done with our volunteer training and just ensuring that we have that full sort of scope on things with folks to understand what's in the count and out of the count and make sure we're not missing any steps there.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship. And my understanding was that about 120 refused to be counted. I don't recall that from past years. Was that a new question that came up?
Sorry, 120
refused to be counted?
No, so the 120 is a combination of the 39
okay.
Who were removed that didn't consent. They actually filled out the survey, but there's a question at the very top that says, "Do you consent to giving your information to us?" And they didn't. In addition to the 83 who answered the question, they said they have a safe, stable place to live in, which is not true, and it's. Yeah, well, sorry, I don't want to overstate, but could not. It's a very, very high number, and I think there was a misunderstanding of that question.
Okay, because when I look from 2024, the decrease to 2025, I just wonder if some of those people would have then brought it up over what it was even last year. So, just a thought. The other question that I had for you is, if you did this at a different time of year, how would it differ, in your opinion? Just wondering what, obviously summer would be higher, but.
Absolutely. I think, this is something our working group had been, piecing out. There's a certain range that the count needs to be conducted within, and it always falls within these few weeks in the winter months. And it's just unfortunate, but it does, in summer months, we'd have a better engagement for sure. We'd have better approaches. We'd have better ways to reach out to people. There's many factors that go into this. I'd like to reiterate, it's a conservative minimum at the end of the day.
Yes.
And it's a 24-hour snapshot. We're doing our best with what we can. Yeah.
You know what? It's important for us to know, so we appreciate having any information regarding this. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Not seeing any further questions on this section. We're on to the BC Trilateral Alignment Project, and Jennifer Fox is here, the Regional Director of the Vancouver Island Region BC Housing, and Ms. Woodland again. Please, welcome.
Thank you. Okay. We just did the introductions. Okay, thanks for having us again. It's nice not to have to move. To start us off in a good way, I want to recognise that BC Housing United Way acknowledge that we are gathered today on the unceded ancestral and traditional territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nation. We recognise the ongoing impact of colonisation and the displacement of Indigenous peoples across this area now known as British Columbia. We dedicate ourselves to fostering understanding, respect, and an acknowledgement of the rich histories of the lands and waterways we traverse. Oops. Oh.
There we go. Thanks, Naomi. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight to share this update with Council and community. As you can see from the agenda, we've got the alignment project update, a little bit more about what that project is and how it connects to the broader community partners, as well as local context in Nanaimo, what is changing and recent highlights. We're working a new partnership at the local level, including BC Housing and United Way BC. BC Housing regional teams and reaching home community entities with their coordinated access and HIFIS leads are working together to build on the efforts that have been made in recent years by federal and provincial partners to also work together in a new way. This will align strategies to prevent and reduce homelessness in communities across BC. What is being aligned? Well, there's a shared vision. We're working toward a more connected approach to local governance, one where services are better coordinated and where we're making stronger use of the data available to us through HIFIS. The goal is a system that talks to itself. It shares information and ultimately works better for the people who rely on it. Moving ahead, federal, provincial, and community partners will be collaborating more closely. Together, we'll align our efforts, build on what's already working locally, and strengthen the overall response to homelessness across the province. And what this means for people is that by working in partnership, we expect to see real improvements in the services provided to people who are experiencing or at risk of homelessness. This collaboration should lead to greater collective impact and more positive, stable housing outcomes. There's also an expanded role for community access and assessment, with the ministry connecting new investments through CAA, through the Belonging in BC. The scope and role of coordinated access and assessment is growing. It gives a broader mandate and new opportunities to support local communities in creating a more coordinated, effective homelessness response.
Thanks, Jen. So the main areas of change in this project are that we'll have a change in local governance. So this means that we'll be streamlining approaches and aligning efforts across community networks, which could include community tables, communities of practice, and different committees, helping to reduce duplication and supporting the constrained capacity of providers within the homelessness serving system. And we'll share more about what this looks like in a later slide. The second piece, as Jen just spoke to, is the new and expanded implementation of a coordinated access system, which learns from systems across Canada. So this is something that's already happening across Canada and builds a system that works for BC, where there has been coordinated access for some time, but this just broadens that system to be more inclusive across funding streams. And then the third area is that data-driven approach, something that we've all been looking for a long time. Focused attention on using one data system so that local and provincial partners can analyze data together. Across Canada, communities have access to a single source of data. In BC, some partners have access to this data, but not everyone. So working across 3 levels of government, this project aims to bring that level of clarity to communities in BC excuse me, starting with the reaching home communities.
Coordinated access is a model that helps people experiencing homelessness across services through one clear, consistent process. It's fair and a transparent way to match people to resources across a community. It's a shared system across many agencies working together. Finally, it's data-driven, helping communities understand demand, improve coordination, and make better decisions about resources and service gaps. Thanks. A bit about what makes it work well. So you'll see there's 4 pillars here. So for the first one is you need people to agree to work together in a coordinated and transparent way. People that agree to make decisions together and share the workload, and that's where the governance and partnership is key to do that work. For the second pillar, it's connecting services and people. Some of those services are workers that help people at specific points in their lives and their housing journey, access points and places where people are triaged for prevention and shelter diversion, for example, and of course, you need housing. Sometimes with additional subsidies and support. All of these services are written down in what's called a systems map and a resource inventory. And then you need a place to enter information about people and what they need, so you can make good referrals and matches. That's where HIFIS shines. Because it collects the person's specific data across all partners, we need to make this happen, and that's pillar 3. Finally, you need the process that makes sure people aren't falling through the cracks, and to bring people together, a common table or a working level network to help solve more complex problems, and that's pillar 4, which we call service navigation and case conferencing. And to complete the picture, you have the 4 steps that each client takes along their housing journey, presented along the bottom of the slide there. One, shared federal provincial requirements, our shared provincial federal requirements, the same issue as Mr. Mayor earlier, are organized by these 8 core components, 4 pillars and 4 steps.
So we should have made sure we were the same height as well. So currently in Nanaimo, there's a little bit of a mixture of what you see on this slide here, where the system is fairly scattered, siloed, and made up of several community entities or networks trying to address a complex issue. In Nanaimo, those various committees and tables have been meeting for years with social sector staff sitting at multiple tables. We know that our current system in Nanaimo was not designed to cope with the volume of need that we're seeing, and many communities have tried to adapt, shift, and change to meet those new and expansive needs through increased community tables, or have created new response systems or projects, often resulting in increased siloed systems of care. The Reaching Home directives, under coordinated access, and the Belonging in BC strategy have identified specific areas of recommendations to support a more sophisticated and complex network of well-informed and coordinated partners. No single organization alone can solve the issue of homelessness. I think that's something we all know to be true. But working collaboratively and utilizing a collective impact framework generates the partnership and trust required to truly make an impact on housing and homelessness related issues at the local level. So what we're moving to is something that looks a bit more like this, which might be a bit overwhelming at first glance. But this governance structure outlines how the different tables and groups will work together, interact, and be accountable to one another. At the top, you'll see that the governance structure includes representation from Indigenous partners in all levels of the system, and ensuring that each group has the right roles, skills, and decision-making capacity is really important to allow the community to develop and implement local solutions that aim to make homelessness a rare, brief, and one-time experience. This is a project that's happening across the province, so there are provincial standards that are being applied across all the different communities, and what we're talking about here is how that's going to be accommodated for the local community and what's already happening in Nanaimo. So one of the first things we've done is we've created an Indigenous advisory group, as well as ensuring that First Nation leadership and Indigenous partners are members of the local backbone team and the homelessness response leadership table. This provides several spaces for Indigenous partners to be involved in the design and implementation of governance and systems that will impact Indigenous peoples in the Nanaimo area. The new governance model will ensure that the strength of existing community partnerships and networks is retained, whilst aligning with those broader provincial and federal focus areas. So, for example, currently the Community Advisory Board, which administers the Reaching Home dollars, guides and directs that funding as a standalone group. Within the new governance model, it's embedded within the local working groups at the bottom, second from the left. So the membership of the CAB is now integrated into that big green box at the top, or HRLT, the Systems Improvement Table, which is the orange box on the left, and all the local case conferencing table, which is what Jen was talking about in terms of that coordinated access and assessment system. We've also added a working group to this model to reflect local needs. That's of the Nanaimo drop-in hub, both for operations and to plan the relocation of the services delivered from the hub. Lastly, with all of this coordination and service navigation, we, as the Nanaimo community, will have a much better line of sight on who is experiencing homelessness, what the inflow and outflow of homelessness looks like, and to get a good sense of where the gaps are in service provision.
Okay. So a bit of an update on progress so far. The local backbone team that Naomi just mentioned includes the United Way of BC, City of Nanaimo, Shnunamuk First Nation, and BC Housing working together. We have launched the Homeless Response Leadership Table, which includes over 20 local community partners. And we're transitioning the Reaching Home Community Advisory Board, as Naomi shared, including convening the Indigenous Advisory Group. Just bear with me here 1 second. The HIFIS working group is planned for expanded consistent use of HIFIS across BC, and then the vacancy matching working group is developing provincial standards for coordinating supportive housing vacancies. The HIFIS working group includes BC Housing and community partners from across BC planning to expand the use of HIFIS, and the vacancy matching working group is working on the provincial standards to improve how we coordinate. The heart and encampment outreach work are continuing and being integrated into the new structure. Okay, as you can see from this slide, we have a lot of great collaboration happening. There's over 29 social service sector partners already involved in the alignment project in Nanaimo. Some of these are new to working in this way, and others have been members of collaborative tables locally for decades. The project partners, United Way BC and BC Housing, Naomi and I are the co-chairs of the leadership table, are immensely grateful to all of those partners for the hours of time they put in to supporting essential services for vulnerable community members for years and years. It is our goal as a collaborative group to support this work through the governance model outlined in this presentation, and this process is iterative, and we anticipate the membership of the model growing over time.
Thanks. So some alignment to existing strategic priorities. To help ensure that the alignment project also reflects those locally identified needs, the local backbone team, as Jen mentioned, which includes the city and Nanaimo representation, identified their core needs in the strategy documents that outline those needs. Within the city's health and housing action plan, the core areas of focus that align with this project include system coordination, leadership and engagement, prevention, and truth and reconciliation. The local backbone team have commenced action on all of those areas. Of note, the Health and Housing Action Plan recommended that 51% of governance membership should be Indigenous. This has been included in the HRLT terms of reference to help challenge the ongoing underrepresentation of Indigenous peoples in the systems and governance that address social issues such as homelessness. This is one example of the ways in which local strategies are being integrated into that broader alignment project. So in closing, the next steps. The Homelessness Response Leadership Table, or HRLT, because we love a good acronym in this business, it meets quarterly. Our next meeting is in May. Part of that discussion will include establishing those additional working groups, including the HIFIS working group and vacancy matching. We're also working alongside the Indigenous Advisory Group to ensure that those Indigenous voices are centred in the design of the new system and governance model. And then the implementation of vacancy matching, as I mentioned, over the next 6 to 8 months. And finally, working with city staff to provide updates to Mayor and Council on the progress of this work and to continue working alongside community partners such as the city and Nanaimo First Nation to help ensure this is a model that meets its goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In order, we have Councillors Armstrong, Eastmere, and Hemmons. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. Two questions, if I may, Your Worship. One of my questions is, you mentioned coordinated access, that there's 15 communities using it. Could you please give us a list later so I can go look at what's happening there?
50?
15, 1-5, it says in the thing. So, because you didn't list them.
Coordinated access communities, do you want to?
You can just email me after, that's fine. I don't,
Sure.
It's great unless somebody else. And then and just for people watching, I'm always asked what is city plan, because nobody knows what it is. It's the official community plan, so just so people will hear that already. And then my other question is, what I see, to me, it's glaringly missing, is there's no citizens or like neighborhood or business at this table. And that's where we constantly get complaints and issues from, that they're not involved in this plan at all. And I would like to know why we did not look at including neighborhood groups, or whether it be a chamber of commerce or something, because they're the people that are the ones that end up coming to our table, as we will hear our next speakers.
Yeah, I mean, as we said, the membership of the HRLT is evolving and iterative over time. So to start off with, we're bringing all of those partners that are directly involved in service delivery to do with homelessness. The provincial standards do include justice groups, businesses, chamber of commerce, neighbourhood associations. Right now, we have really good representation from city staff who have those strong relationships with community associations. If that's an area of interest for this community to pursue, that's certainly something we can take back to the HRLT and the local backbone team. But right now, we're just focusing on that operationalization of the first steps. But this is meant to be a very long-term plan to make sure that over time we address homelessness as a community.
No, I understand that, but if we don't get community agreeing to it, we're not going to get very far. So I always hear we're the last ones to hear about things, like instead of they should be on the forefront. Just my opinion, and I'm sure there'll be discussion at the table. Thank you.
I'm wondering if I could circle back to the question about coordinated access and assessment. I'm wondering if the question is about the number of community entities across province, and I'll defer to Naomi for that one. In terms of coordinated access and assessment for supportive housing programs and sites that have a contract between BC Housing and the operator of that site, there is the requirement that they participate in coordinated access and assessment for a selection of tenants.
No, actually, I was referring to where the coordinated is a best practice model, which is used in 15 communities, but there's no reference of any communities.
Oh,
So
right.
that's my concern, because I would like to be able to go read, do my own research to see, is it working, is it not working? So I would just like an email later with some of those communities so I could look.
For sure, and I can just give you just somewhere to look to start. So the Federal Reaching Home website lists all of the communities that are currently using coordinated access nationally. So this is actually already something that's monitored by the federal government in communities across Canada. Most of those communities receive Reaching Home funding. The communities in BC that receive Reaching Home funding is 10 communities, which includes Kelowna, Kamloops, Metro Vancouver, Victoria, Prince George, and a few others. So there are other communities already doing this work, and the national picture is really helpful on that website, but I can send you some more details about that.
Yeah, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure, of course.
Thank you. Councillor Eastmere, please.
Thank you. I think really I was going to ask something similar to Councillor Armstrong about like where that community involvement and neighborhood engagement piece fit in, and I hear you saying like that can be included, especially if we say it's important, and I really think it is critical. I think that's a big part of why some of our initiatives have really struggled so far, and if we're going to be moving forward, we all have to do that together, and that means having the voices of the neighborhoods and the community at the table really early in the stage and not as sort of a late last-minute engagement piece. It has to be really early in the process. So I'm keen to see that included as part of the written structure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Hemmons, then Councillor Gesselbrook.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you again for being here tonight. Coordinated access is something that we were discussing in 2019 at the Health and Housing Task Force table, and it's interesting to see it come up again, and I agree, the idea is so valid, and I just hope, and I'm hearing tonight some affirmation that we're a little further along than where we were in 2019 when it was still a new kind of concept. My question for you is someone who's kind of been involved in this world for a little bit. You noted that slide with all of the partners. My experience has been that this work is very difficult to do, a lot of heavy lifting. We don't have enough resources to meet the need, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Are we sure that all of the players are at the table? Are we sure that everyone is in line, and that when we say that we have this, homeless individual, we all agree that that is the first person to get housed? Can you just give me some assurances that that partnership development is a key part of the work?
Yeah, in terms of the governance and the design of the community tables, we're starting with what we know, but I think there's so many non-profit organizations, voluntary organizations, other groups that are working with folks who are vulnerable and at risk of homelessness. So I just refer back to my comment in the presentation that the table design is iterative and will change as we learn more about what's needed in the community. Coordinated access in BC, the conversation started in 2017, and we've definitely come a long way since then. And so this trilateral agreement was signed off in 2024. So things have really ramped up and got a lot more advanced in that time frame. And then your last question, sorry, was?
No, I think you've just touched it there. Just affirmation that we've got the community with us. It's you two representing a big community behind you who are willing and agreeing to do this work together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gesselbrook.
Great, thank you, Mayor. Thanks for the presentation. It's really heartening to see the leadership in working at sort of the systems approach of organizing the community, and I think that's probably the first time that I've really seen a good visual map of what it looks like and how that greater integration can go forward, and it's definitely a big task. Of course, HIFIS and the rollout of that has been something that's been a long time, and I'm just curious what are the kind of the timelines that it's hoped that housing providers will be able to have access, and that system will be linking everybody together sort of on a shared system.
I can start. So that timeline continues, sometimes has been pushed a couple of times. As I said, there's these provincial standards. So what we're trying to do is get everybody agreed on those provincial standards, and we're really close to that. So there's a data sharing agreement and a few other kind of core documents that we're agreeing on as a province. And then once that's happened, the community administrators will get access to HIFIS. So for the first time, that will be non-BC Housing staff. So United Way will be one of the community administrators alongside our BC Housing colleagues. And then from there, we need to figure out the training and the development of the staff teams to have broader access to HIFIS. So some people already use HIFIS and some don't. So there'll be a bit of catch up to do. But we've been told over the next kind of 6 to 12 months, we should start to see that rollout of HIFIS into the non-BC Housing funded partners.
Okay, 6 to 12 months. Okay, that's great. It's nice to hear a timeline. And yeah, I appreciate BC Housing. It really seems taking a bit more leadership in terms of the on-the-ground coordination of things. And I'm just curious in terms of, you know, as we see greater alignment occurring, you know, with the rollout of, say, of HIFIS and that, for council, what will we kind of be seeing as a result of that alignment? And I'm really asking a question in terms of, like, will we be seeing greater sort of community advocacy and requests on council, and how, you know, what type of infrastructure we're investing in to support the homelessness response, and coordinated requests for provincial funding as well?
Once HIFIS is fully rolled out, there's the opportunity to get better data. And I just want to acknowledge that when I'm saying data, in some cases we're talking about people. But having that information will help when we're doing our coordination with service providers. So for example, bringing that information to the leadership table that we're speaking about, as well as to the various working groups. It could do things like inform encampment response planning, in terms of prioritizing the vacancy matching in response to some of the information that we're seeing. For example, in the PIT count, there's been conversation about seniors, and we're hearing quite a bit about that. And so the HIFIS will also, and we did say this when we were presenting, it's an opportunity for the persons who are with lived experience, currently homeless or experiencing homelessness, to just have to tell their story in one time only, to have that go into HIFIS, so that there's less having to repeat the same things over and over again. There's also more of an opportunity for better integration with shelters and housing, in the sense that if we're needing to know where Joe is, because there's a unit available for Joe, we'll have more opportunity to be able to find where Joe likely is, so that we can move him into the unit. And so those would be some things that could be expected, as well as having the data to be able to support any submissions or responses to calls for funding or programs that are positioning.
Great, thank you.
I think it will also provide some information on the housing needs that you're seeing within the city. So depending on what's in HIFIS and the demographics, and through that systems map and resource inventory, we'll have a better understanding of what's already there, so where the gaps are and where the municipalities are able to kind of, as you mentioned, lean into your kind of area of jurisdiction.
Great, thanks. Best of luck, and hope the rollout will continue progressing forward.
Thank you. Councillor Manley, then Councillor Perino, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, thank you so much for the presentation. It's great to hear about this implementation of this alignment project and the coordinated access and HIFIS. You just mentioned that one of the challenges has been that people have to repeat their stories over and over again to different people that they interact with in the system. And my understanding is that part of the challenge with this integrated approach with HIFIS is around personal information and protection of privacy, because people fall down in their lives, and it's not something that you know, they get up and carry on often, and that's the hope, that we assist people and that they carry on with their lives. And I'm just curious about the protections that are provided to people, so that this kind of information isn't sort of tagged to them and follows them for the rest of their days.
So that's part of the conversations at the provincial level around the various documents that are being standardized between the federal government, the province, and the community administrators on the front lines. So everything's being under the jurisdiction of privacy impact assessments and data sharing agreements and consent. John spoke a lot about consent earlier, and a big part of it will be each individual that's wanting to access service will have to sign their own consent form. And there's also different stages of that as well. Like you're as a worker, you're constantly checking in with that person to make sure they understand where their data is being stored and what's happening to it. And then, as we mentioned, within that governance structure, in terms of people's information, that's also part of the role of the governance model to make sure that we're following those different standards around data quality and where the data is being stored.
And what happens with people who do not want to give consent but still are looking for assistance? Are they left out of the system, or how does that work?
I think Jen might have a better answer to this than me.
They're not left out of the system. No, there would be ability to access shelter if they choose not to consent to share their information. They're not denied service. And so, in addition to the local backbone team that we spoke about in our presentation, supporting the work for the Nanaimo, HRLT and Community Conversations is the provincial backbone team, and so we have representatives from federal, provincial, and other agencies reviewing some of these pieces that Naomi spoke about with privacy and consent.
Okay, thank you. I think that's really important.
It's not conditional,
yeah, people don't want data following them the rest of their lives for mistakes that they've made or problems that they've had or challenges that they've had. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of things. Just that I understand this alignment project has been rolled out. Is that correct? So how much further do you have to go to get it to where you want it to be? Big question, I know, sir.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Someone in Kelowna, in Penticton, asked me recently, how long are we going to be meeting in these meetings for? And we were just like, how long's a piece of string? It's a new system designed to support the communities for a really long time.
Okay.
So what we've got with HIFIS, that's evolved over the last 10 years. What we've now got with the alignment project is likely going to evolve over the next 10 years. And so what we're starting with like, to use the language in the project, good, better, best. So we're starting with good, and we are hoping to continue to improve that over time through a continuous improvement model. And hopefully in time we'll start to see the impact of this project in making sure that the assets are available to support folks in need, as well as hopefully seeing a reduction in the number of people that are experiencing homelessness.
Any gaps that you're seeing yet?
We don't really have enough of a runway to kind of tell us that, but as I mentioned, we're more than happy to provide those updates either directly to Mayor and Council or through city staff.
Okay. There's no particular one leader?
No, I mean, collective impact is really about driving things through the community. Jen and I are co-chairs of the Homelessness Response Leadership Table, but it's that group of 20 to 30 partners that are leading this work across the community, including with the Indigenous Advisory Group.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And I just wanted to say that, there's a lot of passion and expertise around the leadership table, and just really, really great to work with partners in a community where there's so much heart in wanting to do this great work together. And I just want to express how wonderful that's been to be part of.
Yeah. We want it to work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We are now on to BC Housing Heart and Hearth update. Ms. Fox again. And
meanwhile, homeless people are pushed from place to place.
Ms. Bruni, please.
Ms.
Bruni, please. Ms. Bruni, please sit down and be quiet. We have further presentations. Next is Ms. Fox, Naomi Brunemeyer, Director of Regional Development, and Allison for... Thank you. If you're leaving, if that would be appreciated. Thank you. And Allison Dunnett, Executive Director of Homelessness Programs, BC Housing. Good evening.
Great. Thank you very much. I've never had a warm-up Naomi before, so I am indeed also Naomi Brunemeyer. I'm new to the Vancouver Island team, but not new to BC Housing. I've been doing this role in another region. So hopefully, I feel very welcome already in Nanaimo, and thank you for having us here. I'm joined by my colleague Jen Fox, who is the operation. So I build it, she operates it. So we kind of joke around that I date it and she has to marry it. Allison is actually unfortunately not able to join us this evening, and so it will just be the two of us.
Oops. Thank you. I'd just like to acknowledge again with gratitude that we're here, situated on traditional territory of the Nanaimo First Nation, here to present information and update and for a very important conversation. Thanks. Okay, topics for today. We have an update on Hearth, some tenanting updates, some success stories, talking about shelter, and then other.
One second.
Okay.
Ms. Fox, give her another go, please.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. So we have here a list of the project updates for the Hearth program. As you can see, there's a total of 159 units, currently 87% tenanted, and so we'll start at the top with 1300 Island Highway. That one opened in spring of 2025. Current occupancy right now is 43 out of 50 units are occupied. Then we have our Old Victoria, which right now we've got 52 of those units filled. And then for 250 Terminal, that number's outdated, so it's actually 48 as of next week. So we'll have two vacant units only, the rest will be tenanted. Then we also switching over to 1298 Nelson. Naomi?
Yeah, unfortunately, this had been an investment that BC Housing had planned under the Hearth program to add additional spaces here in Nanaimo, and despite our best efforts, we were unable to proceed with moving forward on that lease. And so we are down those 78 units at the Travelers Lodge, also referred to as Sparrow. So we are looking for an alternate asset to be able to create that kind of capacity in the community. We're working in partnership with city staff on an exact location. I just also want to make a note that the Newcastle Hearth, the one at 250 Terminal, due to, there's two sites that are co-located. One is intended for affordable housing at that location. The other is the Hearth project. And when we initially planned it, we had thought miraculously we would be able to put the temporary housing in one location and build out the permanent supportive next door, and then move people seamlessly. And unfortunately, that is not the case. It looks like the design is better to actually have the supportive housing right where the temporary housing is located. So I want to just also put that kind of point in this conversation that 250 Terminal, as part of our ongoing strategy of the temporary housing model and building into permanent, will also need to be decanted in advance of the construction of 250 starting. There would obviously be a significant amount of engagement with folks and a significant time frame set aside to do that properly.
Excellent, thank you. So for 1300 Island Highway, for the 50 units, the tenanting strategy, as you'll see, is the same for all three of our Hearth sites, and that is the Hearth Strategic Working Group that was determining the prioritization. And so the outcomes, as you'll see, is for 1300 Island Highway, there was 54% of individuals who moved in from shelter, then 30% from encampment, and 16% from other, and that could be a combination of couch surfing, maybe they were staying in their car, and so that's where that came from. Then for 1030 Old Victoria, about half came from shelter, 43% from encampment, and 7% from other areas, and it was a 100% from shelter for the 250 Terminal Hearth site. So the building service model for the site, coupled with the nonprofit partners, helps shapes the tenanting plan. And then that's the prioritization that was done in partnership with community and city on the encampment response plan, which informed the tenanting approach through the CAA table, the Coordinated Access and Assessment Table. Sharing with you success stories from 1030 Old Victoria is the resident journey of somebody who moved in, previously living outside in the bushes in North Nanaimo, referred from the Nanaimo Sobering and Assessment Center, and it took several months for that person to feel safe indoors. Initially, they slept on the floor. They experienced significant physical and mental health improvements by moving into that location, and they're currently working to obtain their ID, and they're interested in re-entering the workforce as a flagger, including doing some painting, and regularly visits the Aquatic Center for their wellness. Other program highlights from our operator, VIMIS, Vancouver Island Mental Health Society, is that many tenants have customized their units with plants and pictures. They've got monthly fine dining Fridays, and tenants are joined in an impromptu running group to support staff who are training for a half marathon, which is really exciting to hear. Just a quick slide about shelters in Nanaimo. And so as you can see here, total shelter spaces is 167, 60, bear with me here, I saw better with that screen. So 63 were permanent, 104 are temporary winter response. And so we've listed them out here for shelter use. We saw 425 people access shelters in Nanaimo between April and July 2025, and 43 people moved from shelters into housing during that same time frame.
So as we stated, 250 Terminal will need to be decanted, as well as 2060 Labio Road in the future. And so most importantly, we want it to be clear that it would be six months that we would start working for site closure, and that would involve communications with our nonprofit partners, tenants, and the surrounding community, and that no one will be displaced. So the goal is to move people into other housing in the community, and that could be existing supportive housing, other subsidized housing, market housing with a rent supplement. So your first bet would be using the housing that you already have built in the community. So you have 258 supportive housing units that are operated. It's been clear you've had a very steady increase in those units since 2017, building capacity within the community every few years for a total of 250. And then we have new projects that are underway. So we have 4 new projects that are coming forward. So the first one that will start is starting to start construction in April 2026, and that's 35-5 Nichols Street. That has 35 units of supportive housing, and our operator there is the Snuneymuxw First Nation. Really excited. That project has received final project approval at BC Housing, so we are just getting up and running. The next one from a construction point of view is actually Boxwood Road. That's the complex care housing project. That's an additional 22 units of complex care, and so could create some vacancies in other supportive housing while we move folks to a more appropriate care model in complex care. So it's very unlikely that folks would move directly to the complex care. Complex care is also tenanted through that same coordinated access model to ensure that it's the appropriate people that are receiving that higher level of care. And then I understand that 250 Terminal has been long in coming in this community, and so that is also underway to start construction spring 2027. So I think we might be still a year out, so that gives us that adequate time to be able to prepare for the decant. That adds an additional 50% of 50 units in the community. Boxwood and Terminal do not have an operator yet. The operator for Boxwood will be selected in partnership with Island Health, given the strong health connections to that building. And 250 would be operated by one of our qualified operators that have been qualified through an RFPQ. There'll be an ITT done by operations. And then our last site, pending rezoning, is Mackenzie Avenue. That's another 60 units of supportive housing. That's currently a site that's owned by the City of Nanaimo that will move forward through BC Housing will be purchasing it. So it'll be kind of neck and neck to see which one comes out of the gate first, whether it's Mackenzie or 250, despite the very different timelines. So just wanted to focus on some other types of housing that are also in your community that do sort of overlap and serve similar populations. So the Women's Transition House Fund is one of the Building BC suite of programs. You have 2 projects that are already open, and we are still proceeding forward with PACE. I can never say this one right. I'm going to work on it. With the Sinamic First Nation. That project has a confidential address given the client population. It is 42 units, and it's likely that we'll start in the later half of 2026 for construction, with occupancy in the spring of 2028. So that is still moving forward here in the community. Definitely some overlap. Women who are at risk of violence often have overlapping reasons and why they're at that situation. And just to recap that we do have some other housing investments in Nanaimo that hopefully, if in a perfect world, we would see some flow through the continuum. And so while we do here to talk mainly about Hearth and not supportive housing continuum, we still need to build the rest of the continuum out. So since 2017, we've seen 291 extra units in the community, and that's for the low to moderate income. That's under our Community Housing Fund program, which does have that deeply subsidized component for people to move in. We have some mixed market housing, middle income housing through the BC Builds, and we're also redeveloping our own site in town for 199 units through our provincial redevelopment team. So in total, in addition to the housing that we've already talked about, we are seeing 1,200 additional units being invested in the community. This graphic just kind of shows you where those investments sit along our housing continuum. So if you were looking on the left side, that's where we're addressing homelessness, where these pieces fit together. Very low income and housing with a significant amount of support. So that would be shelter, Hearth, into supportive housing, and moving through this continuum where we see incomes and support levels change. And so this continuum just sort of shows you where all those fit along that way. And so hoping to see some flow in the housing continuum here, and just acknowledging that is a significant investment in all areas of housing in your community.
Thank you. Councillor Himmons.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you both for the presentation. Regarding the decanting of 250, as well as the Labio site, I heard you say that no one will be displaced in that process, and I just want to be really clear and affirm that that's your understanding, that we will not close those shelters down or those temporary houses down until we have somewhere for those people to go. Okay, thank you. The second, the 60 units on Mackenzie Avenue, my understanding is that's 60 supportive housing. It's right next door to the 59 temporary housing. In my mind, those were never together. We would decant the temporary housing and put in supportive housing. Could you please confirm that those two services won't exist together? Okay, so we will essentially be decanting 3 sites. Okay.
Yeah, eventually, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And my last question, earlier in the slides, we talked about where folks were coming from into central intake, and there were a large number coming from encampments. My understanding from the Heart and Hearth funding program is that people were going to be stabilized in the shelter system and then move in to the temporary housing. So if you could just provide some commentary on that, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. When the Hearth sites opened in spring and summer, there were not the same number of shelter beds available as there has been during the temporary winter shelter funding program. Not everyone who was eligible for housing at the Hearth sites was staying in shelter. So what we've heard from our community partners is that in some cases, Indigenous clients are preferring not to go into shelter. And in other cases, there are some individuals who are neurodivergent and find shelters to be overwhelming. Others, couples, pets, there could be other reasons that they haven't been going into shelter spaces. And so that's where the leadership table was reviewing that information and feedback collected as part of that outreach coordination response, and then made the decision to also prioritize some folks that they were coming across on their outreach activities to then move into Hearth as well, who just weren't accessing shelter.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. And is it also reasonable to assume then, I know we've had the hearth sites kind of ready to go, but they haven't been fully occupied. Is that part of it, that we're really trying to find a good fit?
In some cases, there's been some difficulty locating people. And so on one hand, if we have individuals who are staying in shelter, and they're still there when it comes time for a unit to be available to support them in relocating, that's great. In some cases, though, outreach partners have needed to locate some people who've been up for housing. Yeah.
Thank you.
The shift in the design parameters of 250 Terminal also put a pause on tenanting 250, like Newcastle Hearth. Now suddenly realizing that we would be putting people into housing and then subsequently having to move them back out. And so put a pause on that while we solved it and realized that we shouldn't be letting those units sit vacant, and that we would solve it in another way.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong, and Councillor Brown.
Thank you. Now that Sparrow's not going ahead, one of the issues we had was that Sparrow was supposed to help those that were starting their journey in recovery. We've been asking for dry housing for 250 Terminal, and now that that's not going, is there any possibility that that could happen, especially because we were going to put families beside a wet housing unit where a lot of people don't feel safe?
Yeah, thank you for the question. We are committed to replacing the Sparrow asset with another location with the same model. So it is our intention to replicate the model that was proposed at Sparrow at the new location. So that focus on recovery and managed use would be at the new temporary housing.
Don't you think, this is just my opinion, and I've heard it echoed by people that would be looking to go into that affordable housing, that they won't go there? They'd rather be in their cars than live in an area where dealers, et cetera, are there on a regular basis. So wouldn't the site where we're already going to have affordable housing be better for the dry housing and then do the other one at a different date?
For the 250 Terminal supportive housing, under that program, we do have a low barrier for that site in terms of meeting people where they're at from a housing first philosophy. But as Naomi's just shared regarding the Sparrow, is we're looking for that replacement project that would meet folks where they're at in terms of wanting to reduce their exposure to substances, which is a commitment that we intend to honor.
Thank you.
We do have models across other communities where we do co-locate the community housing fund, so the affordable housing with supportive housing fund. Most recently, it's called Crosstown in Victoria. So you're welcome to investigate that model, Councillor Armstrong.
I will, thank you.
For sure.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Brown, then Councillor Hemmings again.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for the presentations. And I appreciate the graphic with the continuum and the level of investment or the level of units within each, I guess, strata of that continuum. Is it possible to get the data of how people move through that continuum? To what degree people are moving from shelter space to, the next level, and then, ideally you're moving out of the system entirely?
Yeah, we do have definitely some data when people move out, exactly where it is that they're going. So for instance, we do have data around folks who left shelter to go into Hearth. So but if they are just answering, we're going to other housing, and they don't expand on that, we don't have it all, but we can put together what we do know as a community profile and get back to you on that.
Yeah, that would be great. It's just, obviously there's a level of investment both with operations and capital, and it would be nice to know, is that regime actually being successful or not in terms of its overall impact?
Right, and the idea is theoretical until you can actually show that it is working, that continuum. And so one of the key components that we're working with operations is the use of the community housing fund has 20% of the units in every development are deeply subsidized. So it's a mixed income model with 20% subsidized, 50% rent geared to income, and the balance 30% at low end of market. And so it's really using those 20%. So if somebody is able to live independently, where now income is their barrier to housing, that we start using our own resources in that way, and start working with the operators of the affordable housing to say, how can we work through a very similar model to coordinated access. Like we are very good at getting people into supportive housing, and whereas that sort of model of coordinated access to get them out of supportive housing, right, to wrap around what they do need to be able to be successful. So absolutely, it is a key focus of BC Housing, using our resources to the best of our ability within community.
I think the other piece to add is that through the alignment project work and the expansion of HIFIS, there's the opportunity to get more information and data about the flow. In addition to that would be a systems improvement table working group that is being established under the alignment project to look at how we're tracking and monitoring flow between different programs and spaces. And so that's part of the work too.
Sure, thanks.
We look forward to sharing more.
Yeah, thanks. If you could just share it with staff and they could give it to council, that'd be awesome. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Himmons, and Councillor Manley, and then Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship. Regarding Crosstown, the housing in Victoria, is that dry housing? Can you just describe what it is when you said to look it up?
Crosstown is a mixed operating model, and so it has a combination of supportive housing units as well as some low end of market or affordable units as well, and so all co-located on the same, it's about a city block in downtown Victoria. And what we're hearing and observing is that it's operating well. Kool-Aid is a very experienced operator, and we're seeing a lot of good outcomes coming from that project. I'm sure that if council would be interested in coming to take a look, Kool-Aid would be more than happy to organize a tour and provide more information. We're happy to make that connection.
Thank you, but I'm sorry, I missed it. It's not a recovery-oriented project. Okay.
No, the reason why I made it as a suggestion is with Councillor Armstrong was suggesting that having recovery-focused supportive housing beside the affordable housing would be a better fit. And I was giving, because Jen's answer was that 250 terminal was going to continue to be like a housing first, low barrier model. I was suggesting there is a model where that same model is being operated in another island community.
Okay. This council has been really vocal about an interest in having at least one of our BC housing builds be dry or sober for those people who are out of active addiction and don't want to go live next door to someone who's dealing or smoking. In July, we sent correspondence to the Minister of Housing. In December, we sent further correspondence, and I just want to read a piece here where the Minister says, I encourage the City of Nanaimo to share any additional relevant data which may support the request for designation of 250 Terminal Avenue as dry or supportive sober housing. So my question for you is, what do you need in order for us to designate the 250 dry or sober housing?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that came from our minister.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So she's a big proponent of a data-informed approach, right? So it would be mining what you can out of your point-in-time count. So, and knowing what parameters and what characteristics the people who are actually in need of supportive housing are exhibiting. So, as opposed to the anecdotal idea that there are several people that may want to move into recovery housing, if we had data, I think that's what her comment is. So, I think it would be. What is the actual data-informed approach that would support that model?
I would just push on that a little bit to say that's tricky if the point-in-time count does not have a specific question about would you prefer to go into recovery-oriented housing. So I'm sure we have amazing staff. We could pull some data together that would really paint a picture of a need here in Nanaimo for dry or sober housing.
Absolutely, and we are at the direction of the housing ministry.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. As one wise person wrote to me the other day, you don't have AA meetings in bars. Councillor Manley, and then Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, thank you for the presentation. I have a question about the last slide before the thank you slide. It listed the different types of housing, and the last one is other housing, and I'm curious what other stands for. Is that seniors housing, or what falls under the other category?
It would include housing such as rent supplements in the private sector, and so we've got rental assistance programs, SAFER, as well as other rent subs through the homeless outreach program.
Okay, thank you for that. I would just reiterate, the comments of Councillor Armstrong. I worked in the shelter system. I had shelter guests who had gone through treatment and detox and then ended up back in the same place in the shelter system and sometimes with tragic results. So once you've gone through detox and you've cleared your system, you have no tolerance anymore, and so people die in those situations when they are exposed again. And I've talked to a number of people. I do know people who've been through the system who really, really wanted to be in dry housing, to get through this process, the shelter, the temporary housing, the supportive housing. People with disabilities, neurodivergent, or other challenges that had been working through their addiction challenges and needed a place to be where they weren't exposed to continuing, exposed to people that they'd been exposed to in the past, drug dealers, other people that are using on a regular basis, and having people, kind of being surrounded by that. So I do know from direct experience with working with people that there is a request from people in these situations. So thank you, and I hope that we can work something out in regard to that, getting some dry housing, supportive housing in our community for people who do need support, but do want to be in a facility that is dry. Thanks.
Just wanted to add that there is regular coordination conversations between the various outreach partners and service providers, and I'm happy to let one of our leads know to just see if we can gather some anecdotal information to be able to share with city staff, and we'd be happy to do that together.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship, and particularly dealing with this slide, and Councillor Manley asked the one question that I had as well about the other housing. But if you add all of that investment up in housing types, there are just under 1,900 homes, and it's not nearly enough. Is there a magic number that you think we need to get to?
Well, I'm assuming that you do your housing targets every year, your housing needs report, and so you would be in a better position to tell me what your housing needs are. So yeah. Absolutely. Currently, I'm sure that you're not blind to the fact that there is a provincial deficit and that we are repacing our investment, and yes. So we did have to withdraw the CHF intake. So certainly would look forward to what the housing priorities look like for your community yes. when funding is available again.
Yeah, just even housing for workers. It's not even part of this list, and it's such a gap. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentations and attending. Very much appreciated. We have a delegation, Karen Kwika from the Newcastle Community Association. Good evening and welcome. I mean this in a friendly way. You know the drill. 5 minutes, and when there's a minute left, I'll let you know. Thank you for coming tonight.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is Karen Kowicka with the Newcastle Community Association. We're here again with the same request and more reasons to address it. The future of supportive housing at 250 Terminal Avenue become recovery-oriented at the right scale. Council has supported this twice before unanimously. You showed strong initiative and leadership in recognizing the need, and now it's urgent. Why recovery-oriented housing? Why Newcastle Place, and why now? Because there are clear evidence-based reasons grounded in science, policy, and lived experience. And here's 10 reasons. The experts. At the Save Our Streets Symposium, addiction and recovery specialists were clear. A functioning system requires a full continuum of housing, including a recovery-oriented option. Housing stability and recovery outcomes improve when people have access to substance-free environments, following treatment especially. Without it, many cycle back through detox, emergency services, and acute care, risking lives and raising costs. Nanaimo has the opportunity to be ahead of it and provide a system that supports recovery. Number 2, medical science. The medical evidence is also clear. Drug toxicity means acute recovery is protracted. People are highly vulnerable, living with complex and ongoing health needs, cognitive, physical, and mental. They require stability, structure, and support. Without a substance-free environment, relapse risks increase and often sadly lead to death. Number 3, policy. Already reflected in policy, BC Housing, the province, and Island Health all recognize the need for a full continuum of housing. Without the right housing, health declines. Recovery-oriented, substance-free supportive housing is already being delivered in Victoria for people who need stability to maintain recovery. The question is not whether the model works, it's whether it will be implemented in Nanaimo. Number 4, Nanaimo's housing imbalance. Nanaimo has a higher number of low-barrier housing units and limited recovery-oriented options. That imbalance matters because the system doesn't move people forward. It holds them in place, producing a cycle of crisis. For Nanaimo, recovery-oriented supportive housing represents a turning point. Do we fall behind or lead the way? Number 5, Sparrow. You heard tonight the cancellation of the Sparrow project at the former Travelers Lodge. It has eliminated a key housing option for those that have a preference for clean and sober living. This gap has widened, but there's still an opportunity for 250 Terminal to fill that gap. Number 6, recovery. Recovery is alive and well in Nanaimo, but the system is not aligned with it. We must shift from recycling crisis to supporting recovery. Number 7, 250 Terminal. This is not just another housing site. It can be a turning point in Nanaimo. The site carries additional risks if we get it wrong because it has supportive and affordable housing mixed. If the model does not prioritize stability and recovery, it will not just affect one building, it will affect the entire site and the community. Right now, this site can either reinforce the current imbalance or it can correct it. Number 8, the supportive affordable housing are not independent buildings on this site. They share parking, waste, storage, outdoor spaces. The interdependence reinforces the risk. At this scale, with shared infrastructure, the wrong model is risky and smaller buildings perform better. The demographics are number 9. In Newcastle, 40% of households have residents 65 and older, and Nanaimo has over 400 seniors on the BC Housing wait list. These are vulnerable populations, and a successful development should reflect that. Number 10, the unit count. Reducing the numbers of supportive housing units improves outcomes. Smaller scale means more stability, better alignment with recovery model paired with families and seniors, and at this location, the scale model must work together. In closing, so why do we need to prove the need for recovery-oriented housing? Well, the evidence is already right here. You've heard the 10 clear reasons, and to miss this opportunity risks negligence in the face of clear evidence. Our request is simple, that the future supportive housing at 250 Terminal be recovery-oriented, scaled to long-term success.
If you can wrap up, please.
Nanaimo can cycle people in addiction crisis, or it can support recovery. It's a decision that will define how well this site works, and we ask that you please choose recovery.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the delegation? No, thank you, very kind. You can flatter Ms. Guica for her wonderful presentation later and privately, please. Committee minutes are just for receipt. We're on to consent items. I'm going to ask for a motion for adoption and have it seconded, and then ask for any items that anyone wishes to consider separately. Moved, seconded by Councillor Hemmens. Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship. Out of the Finance and Audit Committee meeting, which is B, I'd like to remove number 2, which is the Development Cost Charge Reduction Bylaw.
Very good, thank you. We are voting on all the items that have not been withdrawn. Council, paying attention, are we? All those in favor? And any opposed? None? Councillor Perino, please, on item 10B2.
Thank you, Your Worship. We talked a lot about this at the Finance and Audit, and I didn't want to bring it back up again, especially with the late hour that we already have and still so much to go through. However, I would like to have the vote again. I am against going at 50%. I would like to see our DCC reduction for not-for-profit rental and supportive housing at 75%. I believe that we need more supportive housing than we've ever needed before, and I want to reduce the DCCs as much as possible, particularly because we have just recently raised the DCC cost charges. So if we could call that vote again, please.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion? Councillors Armstrong, Eastmere, Hemmens, Mayor Krogh, and those opposed? Councillor Gesselbrock, Councillor Prino, Councillor Brown, Councillor Manley. It's a 4-4, so it fails.
Thank you. Can I put another motion then on the floor?
Ms. Gurry?
Your Worship, I just want to confirm it was 4-4, yes? Okay.
Those in favor, Councillors Armstrong, Eastmere, Hemmens, and myself, and those opposed, Councillors Prino, Brown, Gesselbrock, and Manley.
Your Worship, if you prefer, I can make a motion to defer this until Councillor Thorpe is back at the table.
Ms. Gurry?
Your Worship, either or, a motion can be made now.
I'm somewhat disturbed by this because Councillor Thorpe is not with us tonight, and candidly, this is a fairly important matter when we're talking about reducing development cost charge bylaw, 50%, etc. Without the benefit of a further discussion by staff. I wouldn't call it a motion on the fly, but it will amount to the same thing. With respect, I would be much happier if someone moved to defer this item, if that's possible, Ms. Gurry, to a further meeting so that staff can be prepared to deal with this in a meaningful and thoughtful way.
I'd make that motion, Your Worship, to defer this.
Yeah, Your Worship, there would need to be a motion on the floor to then defer. So if council wishes to make a motion to have this matter discussed again further, or a staff report brought back further for further information.
So I'll make this.
Councillor Reno's making the motion to have this matter discussed at a further meeting, correct?
You want a motion on the floor first?
Yes, please, Your Worship.
So the exact same motion, except with 75% DCC reduction.
So Your Worship.
And then a motion to defer? Sorry.
Ms. Gurry.
So Your Worship, that motion was made at the Finance and Audit and defeated, so I don't feel like that's in order right now to make that motion. However, this is a different meeting, so I'm just thinking out loud here.
It is in order. This is council.
Look, council, with great respect, Ms. Gurry has the floor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sorry, just thinking through out loud. So yes, this is, as Councillor Brown has said, and I was thinking out loud, this is a different meeting type, so it's not out of order. Sorry, just I have Councillor Armstrong and others, so thank you for bearing with me. Yes, Councillor Perino could make that motion, and once on the floor, it could be deferred if that would be council's.
I just require a seconder.
Seconded, Councillor Gesselbrock. Yes, Councillor Armstrong, you wish to speak to it?
I would like to hear from staff because there was some urgency to get this done, and I don't know how long we can keep putting this off. We've had so much discussion around this back and forth. You know, we heard from the Development Committee that my understanding from Director Hemmens, Councillor Hemmens, was that they were quite happy with the change that she made, and that's what they would like to see. So we went with that based on the information that we were given, and now I don't know what new information has come forward that we want to change that. So I'm just concerned, and I would like to hear from staff, is this going to have a big impact on when this gets done?
Your Worship, just some clarification. Councillor Armstrong, you were absent at the Finance and Audit on Wednesday. This is a different than the DCC-ACC motion that you're speaking of, that you're correct in the sequence of what happened. This one is for a reduction for not-for-profit rental of supported housing.
Sorry.
So a standalone, and maybe Mr. Holm could explain it more, but this is a separate issue. So I understand the confusion because but it was just last Wednesday at the Finance and Audit, and you weren't.
That's fine. I'll just wait for the referral. If it's not an issue, I don't think it is. It's looking like
Mr.
it's-
Lindsay, you wish to say something?
No, Your Worship, but if it was the pleasure of council to defer this to the next meeting in terms of the question was around timing, that is sufficient. There's no
Thank
issue
you.
with that.
Thank you.
Motion to defer, Councillor Perino, seconded Councillor Brown. Any discussion on the motion to defer? All those in favor? Councillor Gesselbrock, Councillor Hemmens, Mayor Krogh, Councillor Perino, Councillor Brown, Councillor Manley, and those opposed. Councillors Armstrong and Eastermere, motion carries. Thank you very much. Well, that's a tough consent item. The next is delegations unrelated to agenda items. Deborah Hollins, Executive Director, Nanaimo Family Life Association, and Violet Hayes, Executive Director, Island Crisis Care Society, request letter of support for the hub. Good evening and welcome, both of you. I think
Hello.
you've been here often enough. I can say, as I said to Ms. Quicka, you know the drill. When you've got a minute left out of the 5, I'll let you know. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Mayor and Councillor, for having us tonight. We want to talk to you tonight about an issue that is affecting every neighborhood, public system, and the well-being of our entire community. We're here to ask for your continued support, partnership, and advocacy for the establishment of a permanent 24-hour help, uplift, and bridge, or hub service in Nanaimo. Nanaimo is facing a homelessness crisis that has grown faster than our local infrastructure. Recent enumeration data, as you learned tonight, shows that at least 577 people are experiencing homelessness in a single day, a 231% increase since 2016, with actual estimates ranging between 800 and 1,000 people when hidden homelessness is considered. At the same time, our community only has a small number of year-round shelter beds available. This gap means that many people are forced to survive outside in encampments, vehicles, public spaces, placing strain on emergency services, neighborhood safety, and public health systems. Without adequate shelter and stabilization capacity, investments in housing cannot reach those who are most vulnerable. People can't attend appointments, maintain health, or transition into housing if they're focused on basic survival. Over the past year, the hub has become the central coordination point for housing navigation, outreach engagement, and basic needs supports in Nanaimo. It has supported hundreds of individuals and has already helped some of the most street-entrenched community members move successfully into housing. The reason for this is simple. Consistency and continuity works. For the past year, the financial support from federal, provincial, and municipal governments has created a viable answer for our community's unhoused people. When individuals have a safe, reliable place to go during the day and during the night, they remain connected to outreach workers, health providers, cultural support, and housing navigators. This connection saves lives and creates real pathways out of homelessness. In fact, consistent shelter access has been shown to directly support housing outcomes and reduce emergency responses and neighborhood disruption. However, the temporary hub model is not sustainable. We are now facing the loss of more than 100 shelter beds at the end of this month. Without a permanent solution, the progress we have made will be at risk, and visible homelessness will increase across our city.
Ms. Hayes.
Community partners are proposing a permanent 24-hour hub at 250 Albert Street, a provincially owned site identified after an extensive search of more than 29 properties. This location offers long-term stability and removes the uncertainty that comes with leasing in the private market. The proposed hub would provide daytime services, low-barrier overnight shelter, meals, showers, laundry, housing navigation, health outreach, Indigenous-led cultural services, and coordinated case management in one integrated location. This approach improves system efficiency, reduces duplication, and supports neighborhood predictability and safety, We are asking BC Housing for a multi-year operational funding and one-time capital investment to make this possible. In the event that 250 Albert Street is not available, we would be redirecting this funding to a location that might require significant renovations and purchase to be appropriate for this project. For example, we have found a location in another part of the city.
1 minute.
That is currently for sale, and we would appreciate would need significant renovations. Your advocacy strengthens the case for sustained funding and system alignment. Your partnership helps ensure that services are located and delivered in ways that balance compassion and community well-being. A permanent hub is not the end of the housing continuum. It is the foundation that allows the rest of the system to work effectively together. Without it, people will not disappear. They will simply disperse into parks, doorways, and neighborhood spaces, increasing risk for everyone. But we do have an opportunity to create stability, improve housing outcomes, reduce public costs, and strengthen safety across the city. You've already demonstrated great leadership through these past investments of this past year and a bit, and so we would ask that you would write a letter of support for us for our proposal for 250 Albert Street. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we welcome questions.
You'll get a few. Councillor Armstrong. No. Councillor Eastmere, then Councillor Gesselbrock, and Councillor Manley.
Thank you. Have you approached Island Health about this? And if so, what have they said?
We haven't, but apparently they have been approached, and we didn't get a positive response, but we've let them know that we are going to be moving further ahead. I guess I can say who told us to put this forward. We went and met with our MLA, Sheila Malcolmson, and she suggested that we put this proposal forward.
Okay.
I mean, I think one piece that is really positive in my mind in this is that it's provincially owned, and so any renovations that are done are put back into the province as opposed to someone privately who owns a building. So that's just my take on it. But
thank you. Well, I appreciate you bringing this forward. I really regret that we are having to close the hub at the end of this month. I know it's a model that I and many of my council colleagues believe in. It exists because we saw the need for something like this, and it's just really unfortunate that that location really wasn't suitable. And I've been scared about someone getting hit on the highway there just because of the safety risk. And so I'm very sad that we don't have a location for it to move into right now. And I'm glad to see this proposal come forward, but without that Island Health piece, it leaves us in a bit of an awkward spot because they're a really important partner that would really have to be on board with this. So I have a motion that after the delegation, I'll suggest it. But yeah, thanks for bringing this forward.
This is the moment for questions, Council, and we'll get to motions and discussion later. Councillor Gesselbrock, then Councillor Manley, please.
Through you, thank you for the presentation and all the work that you've done with the hub and moving this project forward. I really appreciated hearing about the potential location at 250 Albert. I think a lot of people have been looking at that spot and seeing that it could resolve a lot of the issues that were experienced on Victoria Ave there. And I'm just curious, with the proposal that's being made with the province, the challenges that were experienced on Terminal Avenue in terms of some of the trouble at managing the disorder outside. With this location and the new service model, how will those challenges be addressed to sort of mitigate and make this long-term sustainable?
Don't take that.
I mean, I can answer that as best as I can. I mean, I think that, with a stable infrastructure, with having a stable space, with being and with having stabilized funding, we can invest in those kinds of things to be able to provide the support that's needed to contain, guests and shelter people in the spot that they're at, providing, as we have already through the daytime services, really great programming, etc. When you're constantly, working off the side of your desk, trying to find space, trying to do all of these things, it makes it really difficult. However, we do have the systems already in place to be able to mitigate some of the dangers that we saw outside of the hub, and not all of those dangers would be present in a different location. You have anything to add, Violet?
No, I think that's the key, yeah.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Manley, then Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. I have a couple of questions through you, Your Worship. One, looking through your report, need for a permanent hub, it says that the shelter component supported 400 unique individuals, and more than 1,600 people have been turned away due to insufficient shelter capacity. I would guess that those are not unique individuals, but that's just the number of people that have been turned away over the time period.
Yes. Yes,
And
that's good.
and one of the things it also covers in here is the shower program. So are you anticipating that the Caledonia shower program would move to 250 or to the Albert Street location?
Yes, thanks for asking that for clarification. Yes, we are proposing that the shelter program would move to this new location, along with a significant laundry program as well. Yeah.
And like Councillor Eastmere, I had serious misgivings about first of all the location of the current hub. It's not a great location, but also misgivings about it closing. And I'm just wondering if you can maybe talk a little bit about what you think the impact is going to be on the neighborhood, not just losing the shelter space, but losing a place where people can use a bathroom, using a place where people can eat indoors. How is this going to affect the community?
I mean, I think for me, one of the key pieces is like you said, there's no washrooms around for people to use, and food security. Like, we're really facing, people are really hungry, and they're coming in and eating multiple sandwiches. I mean, just want to eat constantly. And where are they going to go, and where are they going to get that food? Like, it's, yeah, I mean, I think we're going to see a lot of people on our streets. They'll be moving back downtown. We've heard really positive things about people moving, up, and so then they're not in the downtown doorways. So I think it's going to, yeah, still be pretty bad out there.
Yeah, I think people are going to be using the bathroom outdoors again.
Absolutely,
And-
and we're going to be seeing more of that, absolutely, with the closing of the hub, for sure.
And food programs are going to be delivered on the street. So we're going to see increased litter. And we're going to see people more, sheltering in doorways. And I don't think it's going to solve problems. So I do have misgivings about the Albert Street location too, because I do think we really need a diversified model.
Again, Councillor Manley, it's questions
Debate for
now,
later.
discussion later. Do you have
Thank
another
you.
question?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong.
My question is, I understand staff has been looking to find a relocation for the hub for quite some time. Have you shared your plans with staff so that they know what they're at? Because to me, they're already looking to try and do this, so I don't know why a new motion would even be required, because our staff has already been directed to try and find another location.
Yes, we've been working with city staff to find a new location, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any further questions for the delegation. Much appreciate you coming tonight and the presentations. Thank you both. Councillor Eastmere.
Thank you. I'd like to move a motion arising from the delegation that staff contact Island Health to discuss the potential of a location for the hub at 250 Albert Street and report back to council.
Is there a seconder?
I think that's already been done. It's already been done.
Read, please, again, just read a little more loudly so the council can hear.
That staff contact Island Health in light of this proposal today to discuss the potential of locating the hub at 250 Albert Street and report back to council.
Councillor Hemmons wants to second it to formalize it, but the obvious question is for staff. Ms. Bhopal Singh, Councillor Armstrong, or Mr. Lindsay? Somebody, you're all pointing fingers tonight?
Sorry, Your Worship, if the question is, has there been previous direction on this matter? I would say, I don't believe there's been formal direction from council. I think the direction has been for staff to look at all opportunities for housing a hub across the community, and staff have been working with partners in the industry. We have talked to Island Health, either through this process or in the past, about the use of this building, and they've been pretty consistent regardless of our discussions. Recent discussions have always, the answer's always been not at this time. As I think most people here know, that building's currently under renovation, and they're looking forward to actually getting set up in there later this year, we understand. But at this point, whenever we've approached them regarding additional uses in that building, we've always received a consistent answer from them, which is just they're not able to commit to any space at this time.
Can I summarize what you just said by saying we're a day late and a dollar short?
Sorry, Your Worship, that was a long answer. The short answer to the question is I don't believe there's a formal council motion on this, so the motion that's on the table tonight, if passed, would direct staff to go back in a more formal way and ask the question of Island Health. We have had, I think, informal, it's safe to say informal discussions and queries over the last couple of years probably on different uses in that building.
Thank you very much. Councillor Armstrong.
So can I speak?
Sorry, Councillor Eastmer, sorry. Go ahead. Punch your thing again. There we are. Oh, crap. Once more with feeling.
So I know that we have informally discussed this before, and I know we have received sort of informal answers that no, it's not the right time, but just because we've asked before, I don't think it's a reason that we shouldn't be asking again. The situation is more critical than it's ever been. I think Island Health needs to be approached formally, given that this proposal was brought forward. I saw, from what I read, it looked really good to me, and I think it's worth asking. The suggestion that potentially the MLA was involved in this discussion, like I just think it's the right thing to do to formally approach Island Health and say, look, this is being talked about, it's being brought to council. It just makes sense to me to formalize this and have a real discussion about this, because the need is urgent and the community partners are here and ready to do the work, and we need to move forward on this. So I hope that we can at least support asking and discussing this potential location.
Thank you. Councillor Hemmons and Councillor Armstrong, and then Councillor Manley.
Thank you, Worship. I seconded this because I don't think it's a problem to formalize, but I do firmly feel that staff have been involved in the conversations leading to tonight's presentation. So this is not a surprise, and this is a collective effort. However, I agree with Councillor Eastmer, having a formal ask isn't bad, and then we'll get a formal public report back. I do want to say, though, that if it would carry clout if the MLA were here also asking to have the Island Health building be, you know what I mean? Like, there could be a different process here that would have a little bit more political weight to it. So I'm just flagging that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong, then Councillor Manley, then Councillor...
I'm just going to agree with Councillor Hemmons. There's no point bringing this on. It's just a report. I don't think we need to go into anything further. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Manley.
Yeah, thank you. This is just a report, and I'm actually curious about MLA Malcolmson and the Minister of Poverty Reduction suggesting that organizations come to us to provide a letter of support for a building that's owned by the province. You know, there's a more direct route here, and I'm not sure why that's not being taken. I would like to see a more dispersed model in our community. I don't want to see a concentration of services in our downtown area because of the revitalization process that we're working on. So I would like to actually see a process where we see, you know, more of this happening in other parts of the community. We have homeless people from the south end to the north end, and there's no reason why services should be concentrated in this area. But I think it should, you know, let's get a staff report and let's see the MLA take some action on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship. My concern is that we're now putting our staff back into the situation where they've already been trying to do this. It wasn't able to be done, and now we're coming back and asking them to talk about it again. However, The difference for me this time is that apparently our MLA has stood up and said, go ahead and ask the council. That's a good sign. If that's the case, and she believes that there's an opportunity, maybe there is, and that's the only reason why I would support it today. That I agree with everything that Councillor Manley has said, but if we can get even a semi-permanent hub just to get us through the next year or two, that would be helpful.
Thank you. Councillor Gusselbrock.
Thanks, Mayor. Through you, just the community delegation requested for council to endorse a proposal to BC Housing in the province for funding for that location. And I'm just thinking, like, there has been conversations with Island Health, but I do think the strength of the proposal would be if there was endorsement from council for a proposal to BC Housing, and then BC Housing would be approaching Island Health, and there would be much more provincial involvement and ownership over this process. And so I do feel we're kind of missing a bit of a step in terms of actually moving this forward. I think, you know, just talking to Island Health again, we'll get a similar response, and then we'll come back here, and then we'll be asked for endorsement again. I think it would be worthwhile to receive a report from staff on just the viability of the location and considerations around this before council provides endorsement. But I've been involved and understand that there's been a very long search for location, and it's extremely impossible to find it. And really what comes down to is that a lot of these locations don't have enough resourcing to actually do the renovations to make them up to snuff, and actually have the provincial involvement in supporting it. And so I think we need to start somewhere, and this is a very reasonable location, given that there's people just outside with nowhere to go using the injection site anyhow, that it's good. But I do have a little concern that the current motion might not be advancing this, but if it does concur with a staff report back to council for consideration of an actual endorsement of this idea, so that we can have a community proposal going to BC Housing to actually see if there's going to be funding available, that would be a real ask then eventually to Island Health to actually use the site. I can support this motion, but there's things that need to be done in the background to actually advance this further to an endorsed proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to support the motion only because I want to have a report back from staff where BC Island Health rather tells us to pound sand or whatever, and also to give the community an opportunity to respond to the suggestion that a permanent facility be established downtown. With great respect, we at City Hall, and by that I'm referring to the staff in particular, have already suffered some very negative consequences, to put it mildly, from individuals who are using the overdose prevention site now. I do not want to see us endorsing any site in this community without some serious consideration and the opportunity for community to respond. So on that basis, I'll support the motion to get a report back, but I am not in any way endorsing tonight the location at 250 Albert Street. Councillor Manley's words are ones I agree with. Concentrating services in one place leads to exactly what the downtown east side looks like, and a place where, quite frankly, there doesn't appear to be a lot of success after decades of significant expenditure. The motion's on the floor. All those in favor? And any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much. We are past the time for the break. Let's take 10 minutes only, please, everyone. There's a number of items to get through, and there's some people who've been very patient here tonight as we've gone through lengthy presentations.
Named after one of Nanaimo's most notable celebrities, Diana Krall Plaza is an open public space in the heart of downtown Nanaimo. The space is one with plenty of potential, but most days it serves as little more than a space to pass through or to access the credit union or public library that have entrances that face the plaza. In essence, Diana Krall Plaza is a space that has yet to find its heartbeat. However, one event does make great use of the space each Thursday evening throughout the summer. The night market along Commercial Street brings food trucks, artisans, vendors, and entertainers in, transforming Diana Krall Plaza into the lively destination it was always meant to be. As downtown Nanaimo is reimagined, the goal for this key plaza is to carry the energy of the night market forward in a way that sees the space used well throughout each day and every season. Diana Krall Plaza was established in the late 1990s when the Port Theatre, the Harbourfront branch of the Vancouver Island Regional Library, and the Harbourfront Parkade were built. The plaza sits atop that parkade. This was a new approach to open space in Nanaimo, but the problem? The plaza was, and typically still is, empty. As the roof of a parkade, the plaza suffers from structural load limitations. The plaza can't support big trees or heavy features. Blank walls on adjacent buildings and minimal art leaves the space feeling uncomfortable and uninviting. Over the years, design ideas were brought forward, but none were realized. That, however, is about to change. In 2020, an advisory committee of volunteers, businesses, Vancouver Island University staff, and students, and the City of Nanaimo came together to re-envision Diana Krall Plaza. Their goal? To create an actionable vision for the plaza that will lead to real change. Building on this groundwork, a project team held community workshops, a design charrette, and put in many hours of volunteer effort to create realistic ideas that would animate the space and make it feel inviting. Features like warm lighting, intriguing art, comfortable seating, and shade will bring the vision to life. The renewed space would also be a multi-purpose and ready for outdoor patio usage, informal play, and many different events, big and small. Now armed with ideas to greatly improve both the physical and social character of Diana Krall Plaza, the design development for the first phase is underway, and with it, a new rhythm is being created for the heart of downtown Nanaimo.
There's a wing flutter of starlings, little specks that swoop low and then rise, gliding over cushions of air, like the gentle crest and trough of ocean waves, to fan out in oblivion. All is quiet and still again. You send ripples through still waters of ponds, making them glisten like 1,000 prisms bathed in the brilliance of a fall morning. Come dusk, you blow harder, and the leaves of the sprawling oak tree pirouette and glide in the air like little ballerinas, then sink onto the ground below. Breath of autumn. I stand atop a hill on an early morn and hear your beacon call, your breath, as you whisper sweet nothings to the stately pines and conifers. You fly with your invisible cape, rustling through their slender branches to make stately willows dance and sway. You gently rise, your breath soft like a lullaby, as you transform maple trees from green to ochre to a flaming red, setting hillsides ablaze, with the fiery plumes of cedars. You ascend to the grey sky to make wispy clouds play hide and seek with the setting sun. You send ripples through still waters of ponds, making them glisten like 1,000 prisms bathed in the brilliance of a fall morning. Come dusk, you blow harder, and the leaves of the sprawling oak tree pirouette and glide in the air like little ballerinas, then sink onto the ground below. A family of furry squirrels scurries down the rugged trunk of the old dogwood tree to nosedive into a pile of crinkled yellow leaves that were once skittering down the cobbled sidewalk. Welcome, autumn. It is fall. Cloud-mottled sky, shadow-flecked Mount Benson, silver-spangled Long Lake, silent creeks echoing shrill cries of a golden eagle that resound far and wide. Sparkling streams meander lazily, their mercurial waters networking the lush green fabric of a city called Nanaimo. Come summer, bushed heavy with blueberries and blackberries, skirt trails that wind through forests of oak and age-old cedars. Ducks and herons play hide and seek among the tall, swaying bulrushes, pock-marking still waters of a pond. Daisies smile and nod through overgrown ferns and nettle, all silently waiting, an expectancy that hangs in the air, a yearning for something new, a new season, a new makeover of nature. It is fall.
This is a City of Nanaimo storm drain. This is also a City of Nanaimo storm drain. The only thing that goes in this is rainwater. Anything other than rainwater ends up into the ocean, which ultimately affects the marine life. There's many different styles of catch basins. These are just two, but they both collect rainwater. One has a fish stamped on it. That's telling me that it's unprocessed and it goes directly to an environmentally sensitive area.
I was on wheelbarrow duty with your bro all weekend.
Oh yeah, nice. We're both.
Len.
All right, the next item, 12, administrative reports. Regional District of Nanaimo, Southern Community Sewer Local Service, Departure Bay Force Main Twinning Loan Authorization Bylaw number 1904-2026. Mr. Sims, long title and a big project.
And I'll try and just keep it a little shorter than that, Your Worship. Thank you. So the report in front of you is seeking Council's consent to the Regional District of Nanaimo to the borrowing for the Hammond Bay Road or Departure Bay Force Main project. This is a critical piece of infrastructure that over 2/3 of the community relies on to flush toilets every day. And that's, any questions we'd be happy to answer. Thanks.
I was just going to say, God help any member of council who votes against this. Moved Councillor Brown, seconded Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much. The next is 12B, housekeeping bylaws related to the termination of land use contracts. We're burying the dinosaurs tonight. Ms. Gurry, please.
Yes, exactly, Your Worship. Thank you, and good evening again. This report is, as it states, housekeeping bylaws related to the termination of land use contracts. The province has terminated effective June 30th, 2024, all land use contracts. So therefore, we have some bylaws that need to be cleaned up and have those land contracts removed. So this is housekeeping bylaws. There's 3 of them, and it is to remove miscellaneous bylaws repeal bylaw, bylaw to repeal outstanding land use contracts, fees and charges amendment bylaw, and this is a bylaw to remove fees associated with land use contract applications and discharges, and the 3rd bylaw is the sign amendment bylaw, and this is a bylaw to remove reference to land use contract signage. So these are necessary in order to clean up this from our system.
Thank you very much, and thanks to Ms. Robertson, who worked very hard and long on this. I'm going to ask Councillor Gesselbrock in Councillor Thorpe's absence to read the bylaws, if that's all right.
Okay.
First one is miscellaneous bylaws, repeal bylaw 2026, number 7451.
Okay. Just pulling it up here. I got it. I move that miscellaneous bylaws repeal bylaw 2026, number 7451, a bylaw to repeal outstanding land use contracts, pass first reading.
Second, Councillor Armstrong. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
Move that miscellaneous bylaws repeal bylaw 2026, number 7451, pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Ms. Gurry, just for practice, we don't have to read it out again. We just say pass second reading and pass third reading, correct?
That is correct, yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Oh,
saving some time here.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
Pass third reading. I move to pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Brown. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. The next is fees and charges amendment bylaw 2026, number 7336.15. Councillor Gesselbrock.
That fees and charges amendment bylaw 2026, number 7336.15, a bylaw to remove fees associated with land use contract applications and discharges, pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Armstrong. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
I move the bylaw pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmons. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
Move that the bylaw pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Brown. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. And finally, the sign amendment bylaw 2026, number 2850.24.
Move that the sign amendment bylaw 2026, number 2850.24, a bylaw to remove reference to land use contract signage, pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmons. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
Move the bylaw pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Armstrong. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
Move that it pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. The next is road closure, portion of Victoria and Corunna Avenue adjacent to 4295 Victoria Avenue. Ms. Strang, good evening, please.
Good evening, Your Worship. With this one, I'd like to pass it off and introduce Nancy Skills, our Manager of Real Estate, to provide an overview of the report and be available for any questions.
Ms. Skills, please.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. The report before you is to obtain Council's approval to close portions of Corunna Avenue and Victoria Avenue, which will be consolidated with the Loudon Park at 4295 Victoria Avenue to support the Loudon Park improvement projects. Council's being asked to consider first and second reading of the bylaw.
It's a good news story. I suspect no council members have questions. Councillor Gesselbrock, once more, please.
Move that council authorize the road closure of a portion of Victoria Avenue and Corunna Avenue adjacent to 4295 Victoria Avenue.
Seconded Councillor Brown. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
Move that highway closure and dedication removal bylaw 2026, number 7448, to provide for highway closure and dedication removal of portions of Victoria Avenue and Caroon Avenue adjacent to 4295 Victoria Avenue, passed first reading.
Seconded by Councillor Armstrong. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
Move highway closure and dedication removal bylaw pass second reading. Roger that.
Seconded Councillor Brown. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
Move that council direct staff to proceed with public notice for the closure of a portion of Victoria Avenue and Caroon Avenue.
Seconded Councillor Eastmere. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. We're on to item 13, development reports. It's liquor license application number LA 166-1975 Bollinger Road. It's no introduction from anyone. It's simply a consideration for a new liquor primary license application for a recreational facility. Moved by Councillor Hemmons, seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Any discussion on this? Not seeing any. All those in favor and any opposed? None. Motion carries. And the next is item B, rezoning application number RA 503-950 Phoenix Way. And the purpose is to present council with an application to rezone 950 Phoenix Way from rural resource AR1 to industrial I4 with site-specific provisions, use, density, lot area, lot coverage, and Parks and Recreation and Culture 1, PRC-1, to allow a future industrial and agro-industrial development parkland dedication. There is a recommended motion. Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Gesselbrock, if you're not comfortable reading it, we can get someone.
I move zoning amendment bylaw number 4500.249 to rezone 950 Phoenix Way from rural resource AR1 to industrial I4 with site-specific provisions, use, density, lot area, and lot coverage, and Parks, Recreation, and Culture 1 to allow future industrial and agro-industrial development and parkland dedication pass first reading.
Seconded Councillor Brown. Discussion at this stage? Not seeing any. All those in favor and any opposed? None. Motion carries.
I'd like to move that zoning amendment bylaw 2026 number 4500.249 pass second reading.
Thank you. Seconded Councillor Armstrong. Discussion? Councillor Gesselbrock.
Thanks, Mayor, through you. I'll be supporting this rezoning application moving to second reading, and Nanaimo needs additional industrial land to support a resilient, future-focused economy, and one that can meet the needs of our growing population and provide good employment opportunities. The lands at 950 Phoenix Way are well suited for this purpose. They are near existing industry, close to deep water port access, and separated from residential neighborhoods. I'm also very pleased to see that this proposal now includes an average of 100-meter buffer over 11 hectares or 13% of the property along the Cable Bay Trail. This is a significant contribution to the community. It will help protect the trail's recreational value and ensure the heavier industrial uses cannot occur directly against that buffer. This improvement reflects Council's advocacy, as the original buffer was only 50 meters. At the same time, as we expand our industrial land base, we have the responsibility to ensure that new opportunities are environmentally sustainable and aligned with community health. Some forms of heavy industry can create real environmental and social impacts. One use that I and many residents continue to be concerned about is garbage incineration, often described as waste to energy. Beyond the documented issues with emissions and residual waste, the bigger problem is structural. These facilities require a constant and substantial supply of garbage to remain viable. That stands in direct conflict with our community efforts to divert waste, especially when up to 75% of what goes to landfill is already recyclable within existing technologies. Our planning should focus on reducing waste, not creating an incentive to burn it. We should also remember our local history. In 2013, a waste energy proposal at Duke Point faced overwhelming public opposition and ultimately required both the city and the regional district to press the province to stop it. The concerns raised then are the same as the concerns we hear today. For these reasons, I believe the industrial uses with significant potential environmental or public health impacts must be subject to transparent public scrutiny through a public hearing. So while I support this application moving to second reading and to public hearing, I want to be very clear, I will not be supporting the rezoning progressing beyond second reading and looking to defer the public hearing until staff bring forward the report council has requested on options for public hearings on certain industrial uses, including carbon incineration. At this stage, I fully support creating more industrial land in this area. It is important for the long-term well-being and economic future of our community, but we must ensure these lands are opened in a way that reflects Nanaimo's commitment to environmental sustainability, public health, and responsible long-term planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Manley, and then Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree wholeheartedly with Councillor Gesselbrock. We do need increased industrial land, and this is the right place for it. It's beside a deep water port facility, and it's a great opportunity to bring manufacturing and other industry into the community. But I would like to see the report from staff regarding my motion on emissions intense heavy industry tabled before we move further forward to the public hearing. I also understand from my discussions with SFN and with Harmac that they're both in discussion about this project, and I know that there's significant archaeological sites in the area, and I would like to see that they come to terms with each other before we move too far forward. I don't want to see another repeat of one terminal drive or one terminal that we had, with the former Nanaimo village site in our downtown area. And so I'd like to see that there's an opportunity for these two parties to discuss this further and ensure that they're on board with each other. We've seen in other areas, Dawson Creek, where the cumulative effects of heavy industry were not properly analyzed by the provincial government, and where we just saw Dawson Creek vote for an independent study on the health impacts of the heavy industry that's happening in that community, and that is at the request of a body of doctors who see rare forms of cancer and heart disease related to heavy industry emissions and in the air and in the water. And I think it's really important to be able to have community input in the form of site-specific zoning when we see proposals like this come forward. We could have had a chromium plant in Nanaimo, and I think that would have been a terrible thing to have here. We have to consider the cumulative effects and the mix of chemicals in our airshed, and ensure that the public has input into those things. So while I support the rezoning of industrial land, what I'd like to see is that land is used in a way that doesn't increase air pollution and water pollution within our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Your Worship. Happy to support this. It's consistent with city plan. It's consistent, or it addresses a need that's been identified for 15 years plus with respect to the inventory of industrial lands and the decreasing amount of them and the growing need for it. So happy to support it, and appreciate the amenity package, especially the buffer, but I'll also note that potential $800,000 in there for Housing Legacy Reserve would help pay for your 75% DCC reduction proposed earlier. So I'll be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Second reading, all in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Councillor Gesselbrock.
I'd like to move to defer the public hearing till council has received the report on potential site-specific zoning for certain industrial uses on this piece of land as outlined in the November 17th council motion that was passed. Thank you.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Manley. Any discussion on this? Councillor Armstrong, then we'll get Councillor Gesselbrock go first, then Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. I think given the debate November 17th regarding looking at potential site-specific restrictions, which basically would mean that for certain uses there would be a public hearing necessary for the development permit, and that a staff report would be provided outlining, details around that, considerations, and for consideration. I think that it's entirely appropriate to have that information before we close new information for a public hearing. I see that it would be incredibly problematic to do this after the rezoning and have to make changes to commitments or I-4 land after it has been passed. And so I think the most reasonable way forward is to have this report come to council before the public hearing so that it can be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. I won't be supporting the deferral. I think it's very important that we go directly to public hearing as our normal process is. Also, I think it's important that we hear from the public before we even get that report to see which way they're leaning. I think it's very important to get it done. And for the same reasons I said before, I don't support the motion for site-specific zoning. We're already losing business that wanted to come here that are no longer coming here because of that. So I don't want to take any more chances that we're going to lose possible business, because the site zoning could take us 3 to 4 years to even get something done. So not in favor of deferral.
Thank you. Councillor Eastmere.
Can I ask a question through to staff about what is the expected timeline on that report on Councillor Manley's motion?
Your Worship, we do not have a date yet for bringing that forward. I can't confirm staff are working on the report. We'll have something to expect before we get to the summer, but I don't have a specific date yet.
So sometime in the next 3 months, though?
Looking at Mr. Holm to see if he can have anything more specific, but I think next 3 months would be a reasonable.
Mr. Holm, give us your best Nostradamus here.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Of course, timing-wise, this application was obviously in process before the motion was given. We have an obligation to bring forward applications when they're ready for Council's consideration. This application is ready for Council's consideration at this point. With respect to the motion, to consider the November 17th motion with respect to emissions-intensive industrial uses, yeah, there is not a specific time set to bring that forward. Staff are working on that. As Mr. Lindsay said, possibly in the next 3 months. It could be longer. Obviously, it would be unfair to tangle this application up in consideration of that process, so it does depend on the timing of the public hearing. So it is, if Council gives direction to proceed with this application as presented, proceed to public hearing, I think we'd have to follow a fair process. Our recommendation would be obviously the Council follow a fair process. It could impact the timing of bringing that report forward, although as Mr. Lindsay mentioned, I wouldn't expect it to come forward in the next within the next 3 months, probably sometime outside of that. And yeah, happy to follow up on that if needed. Hopefully that helps.
And then if I can ask a second question, like, because of the rules around not taking in new information after the public hearing and then before fourth reading, there's like a limitation there that report probably couldn't come forward then between the public hearing and fourth reading. Is that?
Through Your Worship, correct. Yeah, it should have been clearer, as you've stated. That's exactly one of the challenges. Would be not wanting to introduce additional information post-public hearing. Obviously, there's existing industrial zone land out there. This is contemplating rezoning land to I-4. There's existing I-4 land out there. There's nothing saying, obviously, that Council could not consider changing if this were to follow through and be rezoned as proposed. There's nothing to say that Council can't consider changes to the I-4 zoning that applies to this property after the fact as well as the I-4 zoning that applies to other properties existing in the city. That's always something Council can consider going forward. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Manley, and then Councillor Gussabrok again.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm hesitant to see this go forward without having that report in front of us. And because if we do rezone, we could see proposals come forward with that are emissions intense, and the health implications, the impact on people living in Cedar, people living on Gabriola, and IR number 4, IR number 3, IR number 2, that people may want to be able to weigh in on those things. And I'm not sure if we have a legal opinion about what the implications are if we had a building permit after zoning has passed where somebody wants to bring in emissions intense industry into this IR4, newly IR4 zoned land, if and when that passes through. And so I would like to see us do our due diligence prior to that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gesselbrock again? On the deferral, all right. The motion. Sorry. Mr. Holm.
Yeah, sorry, through your worship, just to Councillor Manley's comment there. If there's definitely potential. I think what Councillor Manley was referring to is with respect to establishment of a non-conforming use commitment. But if you look at if council were to look at the conditions of rezoning, there's a lot of work to do before a use can actually be established on this property, as proposed through the rezoning. So there's quite a bit of work to do should this rezoning proceed to adoption as proposed. There's a number of conditions related to servicing the property that would need to be addressed prior to any use realistically being established. I just thought I'd clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gesselbrock.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, I think that there's a very large public interest on this particular issue. I think that there's quite a lot of support for, in the industrial zoning. However, there is a lot of concern in the community. And I do feel that bringing the report after the public hearing just adds more uncertainty for the opening up of, 200 plus acres of industrial land. And it'd be good to have this particular issue sorted out before we go through and proceed. But it's council's pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. The motion is to defer. All those in favor? Councillor Gesselbrock, Councillor Manley, Councillor, that's it. And those opposed, Councillors Armstrong, Councillor Eastmere, Councillor Hemmens, Mayor Krogh, Councillor Perino, Councillor Brown. The motion to defer is defeated. The motion on the floor will be, if someone moves it, moved by Councillor Armstrong. The council directs staff to, and I don't think it needs to be read out, does it, Ms. Curry? And it's seconded by Councillor Perino. Discussion on the motion. All those in favor, Councillors Armstrong, Eastmere, Hemmens, Mayor Krogh, Perino, and Brown, and those opposed, Councillors Gesselbrock and Manley. The motion carries. Thank you very much, Council. We're on to 14 by... Sorry?
I move that council direct staff to secure the conditions. There's just one more.
No, that's
that was just moved. That was just...
Number 4?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
Done.
We moved the hearing.
No, we didn't.
Yes, we did.
No, that was the
Well,
third.
We moved the public hearing. We didn't move the fourth piece.
That's right, because we did the amendment.
Sorry, Your Worship. Yeah, they're correct.
my understanding was it doesn't matter. We'll go back and revote. The motion is that council direct staff to hold a public hearing.
No. There's just number 4. We passed that one.
The fourth one is conditions.
So, Your Worship and I thought it was moved together, those 2 bullet points.
Yes,
but, yeah,
exactly.
But go ahead and move the second bullet point, if that's the understanding most of council had.
Move the second condition. Moved and seconded, and that the second condition is that secure the conditions related to the zoning amendment bylaw 2026, number 4500.4249, as outlined in the conditions of rezoning section, the staff report titled rezoning application number RA 503-950 Phoenix Way, dated 2026, March 23rd, prior to final adoption. All those in favor of that motion? And any opposed? Councillor Manley, thank you very much. Are we happy now, everyone? This is good? Yeah, well, we're getting there. On to 14, bylaws. Councillor Gesselbrock, City's Plan Amendment Bylaw 2023, number 6600.001. Going to move the...
Move that city amendment bylaw number 2023, number 6600.001 be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Carries. The next is B, zoning bylaw amendment bylaw 2023, number 4500.213.
Move that zoning bylaw amendment bylaw 2023, number 4500.213 be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. On to C, park dedication bylaw amendment bylaw 2023, number 7182.01.
Move that park dedication bylaw amendment bylaw 2023, number 7182.01 be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Armstrong. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. And item D, Public Works Yard Updates Borrowing Bylaw 2026, number 7450.
Move that Public Works Yard Updates Borrowing Bylaw 2026, number 7450 be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Brown. Nope, pardon me. Councillor Perino. Oh, yes, okay. Go ahead. Councillor Brown.
Thank you. Thank you, Worship. I'll be very quick. I voted in opposition to this at the first three bylaw readings. Went back and revisited everything in hopes that I would be able to find support. And I'm even more convinced now that I'm in opposition. So just want to make that very clear. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? Councillors Armstrong, Eastmere, Gesselbrock, Hemmons, Mayor Krogh, Councillor Perino, and Councillor Manley, and those opposed, Councillor Brown. I've been the lone wolf on occasion myself lately. Motion carries. The next is correspondence. Correspondence dated 2026, March 13th from Stuart McLean, Chair, Regional District of the Nanaimo RDN, ReRDN Board voting. No motion, comments on it? Councillor Brown, please.
I had a motion I sent through to staff if it's easier to get on the screen, but.
And that's in the addendum.
Your Worship, the letter is in the addendum, but the motion was sent through and is up on the screen.
And the motion is it's up on the screen. Thank you. You can all read the motion. Any discussion? Seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Well done. All those in favor and any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much. I give you public compliments, Councillor Brown. This was your baby from the start in terms of how to settle the difficult problems we faced. Much appreciated. The next is the Nanaimo Hornets Rugby Football Club request for letter of support re-BC Gaming Program application. Moved by Councillor Gesselbrock, seconded by Councillor Eastmere. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. We have no notices of motion, but we do have some other business tonight. Councillor Brown, motion re-proposed amendment to Council Procedure Bylaw re-responses to delegations. Councillor Brown, please.
There we go. Thanks, Your Worship. I will move the motion as written in the agenda package and speak to it if there's a seconder.
Seconded, Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is really, I think, I've seen this come up a few times over both my terms where there's delegations. I've been guilty of this myself. Sometimes I think it's it's very appropriate and easy to pass a motion from delegation, but other times I do think it begs a response that isn't always the best decision, and I think simply having a gap between a delegation and a conviction of a particular councillor to bring forward a vote, or the item for vote, would serve decision-making better. Fully appreciating there may be times, I think oftentimes we think there's urgency or an emergency, and usually there's not, but fully appreciate at times there may be, especially around funding considerations or requests for a proposal. In that regard, I think council should be able to vote to address it at that meeting. The 2/3 vote is consistent with the, and thanks to Ms. Gurry for pointing this out, is consistent with what it takes to suspend the procedure bylaw anyways. So that would avoid the need to suspend the procedure bylaw. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Armstrong?
Support of this, because I too have been guilty of actually voting for something, then when I had a chance to actually talk to staff, I realized I probably should not have voted the way I did in both cases. So I also think because he's brought in the fact that council resolves by the two-thirds vote, if it's very important to somebody, they have the option of bringing it forward. So I think it addresses all of our issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perino?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question through you. If you wish to see an acceptance, if you as mayor wish to accept a motion on the fly, can you still with this if it passes?
Ms. Gurry, I don't think so, and I hope not. I don't like motions on the fly.
Your Worship, with this change, should it occur in the procedure bylaw, it would allow council to vote on allowing a motion on the fly, as you call it.
Okay.
With a 2/3 vote, and that motion would happen prior to the actual motion that is being requested.
Okay, good.
For what it's worth, I'm very happy with this current motion before council.
Me too. Me too. I'll be supporting.
Any further discussion on it? All those in favor? Councillor Armstrong, Gesselbrock, Hemmens, Mayor Krog, Perino, Brown, and Manley. And those opposed, Councillor Eastmere. Motion carries. Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. The next one is yours as well. Councillor Brown, motion re proposed amendment to the council procedure bylaw re-amendments to notices of motion.
There we go. Slow.
There we go. It's a little slow, yours tonight.
Like its user. I'll move the motion as written in the agenda package.
Seconded, Councillor Armstrong, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. This motion is really intended, similar to the one we just passed, to make sure that council is always operating with current information. And I've been guilty of this in the past myself, where you provide a notice of motion and then you hear a bunch of feedback, whether from other councillors or the public or staff, and the original intent of the motion is lost, and then you surprise council. And so I think, there would be some discretion here, I think, with the mayor and the corporate officer to determine how far is a deviation, but I think it's important to have that principle in our procedure bylaw. And if you provide notice that however that motion ends up when it hits the council table, it's consistent with the original intent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? Councillor Armstrong, just hold it. Did you want to speak? Sorry, Councillor Eastmere. Electronics are slowing down tonight. I guess they're getting tired.
Thank you. I'm not in favor of this just because I think it's going to get really muddy around like what constitutes a significant alteration. And I think that if there's enough agreement around the table to accept an amendment, if that does alter the motion, I don't see an issue with that. So I don't think this is necessary, and I won't support it.
Thank you very much. Not seeing any further speakers. All those in favor, Councillors Armstrong, Hemmens, Mayor Krog, Councillor Perino, Councillor Brown. Those opposed, Councillor Eastmere, Gesselbrock, and Manley. Motion carries. Thank you very much. The next is Councillor Perino's request for reconsideration, BC Council of Forest Industries request for endorsement of forestry as a solution campaign. Councillor Perino, moving the motion.
Yes, I am.
Is there a seconder?
Did you have to second first?
You have to get the motion on the table first, seconded.
Yes.
And Councillor Perino?
And I do wish that it could be deferred because Councillor Thorpe is away tonight, and I know he wanted to be a part of this vote, and I'll speak to supporting it when it does come back to the table.
So Councillor Armstrong's moved to defer. You're seconding.
Yes.
The motion is deferral. Discussion on the motion to defer. Not seeing any. All those in favor of deferral, Councillors Armstrong, Hemmens, Mayor Krog, Councillor Perino, and those opposed. Those opposed, Councillor Gesselbrock and Brown and Manley. The motion carries. Thank you very much. Question period. For what it's worth, Council, I think it is appropriate in situations like this to defer these motions when a council member is absent, not of their own wish or volition.
I'm not sure if one of those is on the public hearing topic, and if so, it should go to public hearing.
13B, Mr. Chapman, ask your question, but it may be something that should be actually go to the public hearing, but I'll hear what your question is, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that at the public hearing, is that an opportunity to influence what is approved? Like, for instance, the reestablishing the need for a 100-meter minimum setback versus 100-meter average setback would be a thing.
Everything is on the table at a public hearing.
Okay,
And then
looking
you've got
forward to that.
17C.
You just
And
deferred
that's just
that
been
motion.
deferred,
Yeah.
so we know where we're going with that. Thank you very much. Hope you've had a good evening here. Motion to adjourn, Councillor Armstrong, seconded Councillor Hemmens. All those in favor, any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much, Council.